Chapter 664. Qin Wentian coldly laughed when he heard the roar of the Ouyang ancestor. Old fogey, what do you have to say for yourself? Rumble. The aura of the Ouyang ancestor towered up into the skies. Qin Wentian, a junior, actually dared to call him an old fogey? You've gone too far. Bring Ouyang Quangxing away now and I won't pursue this matter any further. The Ouyang ancestor coldly spoke. Even if he was forced into such a situation, he still wasn't willing to start a war with Qin Wentian. This young man in front of him had fought against the Great Solar Qin clan and the Pill Emperor Hall back then, and even annihilated the Great Solar Qin clan. Although he had the advantage in terms of combat prowess, he still didn't dare to underestimate this young man. You won't pursue this matter? Qin Wentian laughed. Back then, you broke your promise to form an alliance and cultivated the ultimate art of Grand Xia. Let's temporarily forget about this debt. You even imprisoned my brother, forcing his beloved to marry Ouyang Zichen. Now you're telling me that you won't pursue this matter. What do you want then? The Ouyang ancestor coldly spoke. Apologize for what happened in the past and leave the Ouyang aristocrat clan. From now on, you are no longer to interfere in the matters of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The Ouyang aristocrat clan shall be under the control of Ouyang Quangxing. Today's wedding shall continue. Ouyang Quangxing shall marry Jiang Ting. Impudent. The body of the Ouyang ancestor trembled slightly when he heard such arrogant words. His aura towered up into the skies. Qin Wentian, I've already given you enough face. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Mercy? Qin Wentian laughed. He was truly afraid of him. As for mercy, would this old fogey care about mercy? I'll give you one more chance. Do you agree or not? Qin Wentian's voice was even more domineering compared to the Ouyang ancestor, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. Boom! Thunder and fire intersected. The Ouyang ancestor was enraged. Qin Wentian already knew the answer. He turned his gaze over and stared at the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. Today was the day of the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan, and the two ascendants from the Jiang clan had already arrived. I, Qin Wentian, am friends with Jiang Ting. I won't be calculative about what happened in the past. Since Jiang Ting and Ouyang Quangxing are in love with each other, I don't wish to harm the two of them. Hence, today shall still be the day of their grand wedding, a marriage alliance. However, I hope that the two of you can choose wisely. Do you want to sacrifice Jiang Ting and form an alliance with Ouyang Zichen, or do you want Jiang Ting to marry Ouyang Quangxing and form an alliance with me, Qin Wentian? Qin Wentian spoke to the two ascendants of the Jiang clan. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire crowd trembled. Qin Wentian's words were too tempting. He wanted the Jiang clan to choose whether to form an alliance with the Ouyang ancestor or him, Qin Wentian. Just based on the current situation, if the Jiang clan wasn't included, the strength brought by Qin Wentian wasn't in any way inferior to the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Not only that, they had 4 ascendants. As long as the Jiang clan chose Qin Wentian, their alliance would have 6 ascendants, fighting against the 3 from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Should they choose 5 ascendants against 4 ascendants, or 6 ascendants against 3 ascendants? This kind of multiple-choice question was too simple, so simple that it caused the Ouyang ancestor to feel a chill running down his spine. A single sentence from Qin Wentian actually caused him to feel a chill in his heart, as though he was filled with fear. If the Jiang clan chose Qin Wentian, what would the consequences be? The two ascendants of the Jiang clan were also stunned by Qin Wentian's words as their thoughts sped through their minds. The reason why they formed an alliance with the Ouyang aristocrat clan was naturally because of mutual benefits. What could Qin Wentian bring them? Ouyang Quangxing is my brother, Jiang Ting is my friend. As long as the Jiang clan agrees, I can guarantee that in Grand Xia, the Jiang clan will definitely rise to glory. If you all still choose that old fogey Ouyang, it would mean that you have abandoned Jiang Ting once again. In that case, I will no longer care about the relationship between Jiang Ting and the Jiang clan. In the future, I will treat the Jiang clan as my mortal enemy. Brother Jiang, this brat is trying to sow discord, don't believe him. The Ouyang ancestors stared at one of them as he spoke. How ridiculous, is there a need to sow discord? Aren't you overestimating yourself a little too much? Qin Wendian turned his gaze onto those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan and Jiang clan as he coldly spoke, for those who have nothing to do with this, leave the battlefield immediately. As for the others, kill them without mercy. As the sound of his voice faded, killing intent gushed forth. Shameless boasting, this brat is courting death today. Kill him. A towering lightning glow radiated from Ouyang Mutian as a constellation manifested in the air, incomparably resplendent. Within that terrifying constellation, there seemed to be numerous destructive lightning swords that revolved frenziedly, resembling bolts of lightning. Qin Wendian was too overbearing, he actually dared to act so tyrannically during the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan. This was simply intolerable. Qin Wendian, do you really want me to kill you? The countenance of the Ouyang ancestor flickered with coldness as killing intent radiated from him, incomparably terrifying. The three ascendants all released their towering auras as the entire sky changed color, enveloped by their constellations. The two experts from the Jiang clan furrowed their brows, not knowing what to choose. Senior Qing Mei, Hall Mistress, I'll have to trouble the two of you to kill that old fogey Ouyang. Qin Wendian spoke. Fairy Qing Mei and the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress nodded their heads as they stepped out, their terrifying killing intent locked onto the Ouyang ancestor. Qin Wendian wanted the two of them to kill the Ouyang ancestor. Humph, the other ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan stepped out, wanting to obstruct the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress. However, the black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Hall stepped out as a beam of netherworld light shot over. Old Xing, help Senior to kill him. Qin Wendian spoke to Old Xing who was beside him. Right. Old Xing nodded, joining forces with the old granny to deal with a celestial ascendant. Has he gone mad? The hearts of the crowd trembled. Qin Wendian didn't let the ascendants fight one-on-one. He got Fairy Qing Mei and the Mystic Moon Hall Mistress to gang up on the Ouyang ancestor, while getting Old Xing and the black-robed old granny to gang up on the other ascendant. However, the Ouyang aristocrat clan still had Ouyang Mutian and the two ascendants from the Jiang clan. Did Qin Wendian and the others want to die? Even now, I still believe that even if the two seniors from the Jiang clan don't help me, they wouldn't interfere in the matters today. At the very least, we still have a chance to become friends. Just when the two ascendants from the Jiang clan were about to make a move, they heard Qin Wendian's voice. They stared at Qin Wendian's deep eyes that gleamed with a bright light, and they couldn't help but feel trepidation in their hearts. Back then, this young man was already so terrifying. Now that he no longer had the confidence, would he really dare to cause trouble in the Ouyang aristocrat clan? Also, a single sentence from Qin Wendian gave the Jiang clan more options. As long as they didn't participate in the battle, Qin Wendian wouldn't have to make an enemy out of them. Since you want to die so badly, I shall grant you your wish. Ouyang Mutian soared through the air, appearing above Qin Wendian's head. His resplendent constellation enveloped this entire space, resembling dark clouds of destruction that could crush down at any moment. Zhong Yi, Bingyu Chan, old clan leader Bailu, I shall leave this place to you guys. Qin Wendian spoke. After which, he stepped out and soared up into the air. In his hands, a blood-colored halberd could be seen. This was none other than the Scarlet Demon Halberd. A terrifying surge of bloodline chi soared up into the skies. A terrifying demonic tempest manifested from Qin Wendian, causing him to become incomparably demonic. Resplendent light revolved around him, unexcelled in this world. What is he trying to do? Great waves of shock rose in the hearts of the spectators when they saw Qin Wendian soaring up into the air, moving towards Ouyang Mutian. Qin Wendian wanted to fight against a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Fighting against a celestial phenomenon ascendant at the Heavenly Dipper realm? Even Ouyang Guangsheng and Jiang Ting felt their bodies tightening. At this instant, Qin Wendian's aura had already reached the pinnacle of Heavenly Dipper. The power of his bloodline caused his aura to rise even further, yet it was obstructed by a formless energy, as though he had no way to break through that barrier. This barrier was none other than the barrier of celestial phenomenon. At this moment, Qin Wentian's aura had already reached the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Many experts at the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper felt their hearts trembling. They had never seen such a powerful character at the peak of Heavenly Dipper before. The disparity between the aura of those at the peak of Heavenly Dipper was simply too great. They weren't even on the same level. I'm begging for death. Are you even qualified? The scarlet demon halberd in Qin Wentian's hand was pointed towards Ouyang Mutian. His arrogance was unexcelled in this world, as though he was the monarch of all demons, ruling over everything under the heavens. Bzzz. Ouyang Mutian soared up into the air with his constellation in his hands. Lightning sword light ravaged the area, akin to a terrifying tempest. I truly want to see how a Heavenly Dipper cultivator can fight against a celestial phenomenon ascendant. Qin Wentian's body rose up into the air together with Ouyang Mutian. The aura he exuded was akin to a myriad of demonic beasts galloping past. Die! Ouyang Mutian finally made his move. Both of his eyes flickered with terrifying lightning. With a single word, the constellation in the air shot out beams of lightning sword light, transforming into destructive bolts of lightning that annihilated all the experts within it. This was Ouyang Mutian's constellation, the lightning sword constellation. It contained a terrifying destructive might within. Qin Wentian wielded the scarlet demon halberd in his hands, not moving at all. The beams of lightning sword light slammed into him, causing people to not dare to look directly at him. However, just when everyone thought that Qin Wentian was about to be killed, they discovered to their astonishment that Qin Wentian was still standing there arrogantly. Resplendent light circulated around his body, protecting him like an armor. No matter how the lightning sword light slammed into him, he wasn't injured in the slightest. What a weak constellation! Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the constellation in front of him. No wonder people in the past said that the disparity between celestial phenomenon ascendants was extremely great. As a celestial phenomenon ascendant, Ouyang Mutian was a hegemon of Grand Xia. But in Qin Wentian's eyes, his constellation was so weak that it was pitiful. Its destructive might couldn't even be compared to a casual strike from those buried immortals at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. Qin Wentian's faint voice caused Ouyang Mutian to turn pale. He felt an incomparably great humiliation. He unleashed his constellation at the celestial phenomenon realm, yet he couldn't even break through the defenses of Qin Wentian's body. If it was me, I would rather not break through to celestial phenomenon than condense such a weak constellation. What's the point of stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm? How lamentable. Qin Wentian's calm voice was like a bolt from the blue, shaking the hearts of the crowd, as well as the 2 ascendants of the Jiang clan. They all thought that they were the hegemons of Grand Xia after stepping into celestial phenomenon realm. However, a single sentence from Qin Wentian not only shattered Ouyang Mutian's confidence, it also destroyed their pride. Was this the returned Qin Wentian? That demon-level genius who once stirred up a storm in Grand Xia, bringing with him a halo even more dazzling than the constellations back to Grand Xia. Chapter 665. For celestial phenomenon ascendants, they would first comprehend their true intent before fusing their astral novas back into their astral souls. During the process of their astral soul's evolution, they would need to infuse their true intent into their astral novas before they would be able to manifest a constellation. This also meant that the constellation of celestial phenomenon ascendants contained the energy of their astral souls as well as their true intent. Hence, for some stellar martial cultivators with powerful astral souls and true intents, they only needed to use their constellation to suppress their opponents and they would be able to sweep through everything, annihilating everything. Since constellations were formed from astral souls and true intents, there were naturally countless types of constellations. For example, attack-type constellations, defense-type constellations, control-type constellations, etc. Ouyang Mutian's constellation contained the true intent of lightning within and was clearly an attack-type constellation. But even so, the direct attack of his constellation had no way to break through Qin Wendian's defense. Qin Wendian had personally experienced the combat prowess of buried immortals before. He dared to confirm that if those buried immortals attacked with their constellations, the moment they unleashed their constellations, they would definitely be able to suppress everything. There was no need for them to even use their hands to attack. Naturally, the reason why Qin Wendian felt that Ouyang Mutian's constellation was so pitifully weak was because his horizons were too high. After all, Grand Xia was a desolate place in the eyes of the experts of the royal sacred region. Those who just broke through to the celestial phenomenon realm could already be considered as a hegemon. For many people, it was already extremely difficult for them to take a single step forward even after hundreds or thousands of years. Breaking through to the celestial phenomenon realm was already considered an extremely great breakthrough. It was simply unrealistic to expect them to have many types of constellations or to have an extremely powerful attack-type constellation. For those people, they would have long left Grand Xia. The constellation Ouyang Mutian comprehended could be considered one of the simpler ones. It contained the true intent of lightning within, and its attack was already considered very powerful. However, Qin Wendian's defense was simply too terrifying. He cultivated the fiend transformation art and had long tempered his body to the point where it was as terrifying as a demonic beast. In addition to his powerful bloodline, in addition to the fact that he had refined the sky demon oracle bone into his body, even if he didn't use astral energy to protect himself, his defense was already extremely shocking. And when facing against Ouyang Jintian's attack, Qin Wendian's body was cloaked with astral energy as well as illusory demonic energy. Just the attack of Ouyang Mutian's constellation was naturally unable to shake him in the slightest. However, the scene before their eyes had a huge impact on the spectators. A peak-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign could actually be so tyrannical when facing a celestial phenomenon ascendant? This completely toppled their understanding. What if Qin Wendian broke through to celestial phenomenon? Didn't that mean that he wanted to sweep through all the ascendants of Grand Xia single-handedly? For those who came to spectate, there were many representatives from the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. For example, the Wang clan of the War Continent, the Star-Seizing Manor of the Moon Continent, and the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure Continent. As for the experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, it was as though they had already forgotten about the battle with the experts brought by Qin Wendian. They only stared at the battle in the air and understood that the ending today didn't depend on them. Instead, it was the battle between the three peak-level experts. Initially, they thought that they had the advantage, with 5 ascendants against 4. However, with just a few words from Qin Wendian, the situation changed drastically. 2 ascendants ganged up on one from their Ouyang aristocrat clan. But even so, they initially thought that as long as Ouyang Mutian killed Qin Wendian quickly, they would still be able to salvage the situation. However, Qin Wendian's strength caused them to feel a chill invading their bodies. Did the Ouyang aristocrat clan still have an advantage? Upon seeing Qin Wendian's strength, the 2 ascendants from the Jiang clan were already destined not to interfere. Nobody would be willing to form a death grudge with such a character. Right now, the hopes of the Ouyang aristocrat clan could only be placed on Ouyang Mutian, hoping that he would be able to kill Qin Wendian. Ouyang Mutian's countenance turned ashen. He stretched out both his palms as lightning flashed in his palms, drawing upon the power of his constellation, causing the entire constellation to seethe with rage. Die! Ouyang Mutian coldly roared. Instantly, boundless lightning swords slashed downwards, even more resplendent compared to earlier. Bzzz. The light circulating around Qin Wendian grew increasingly resplendent. He had comprehended 4 types of true intents and had even fused them together. Against Ouyang Mutian, he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Numerous lightning swords blasted downwards, unceasingly piercing into the radiance around Qin Wendian, exuding a terrifying destructive might. The collision of light beams caused the spectators on the ground to feel their hearts trembling. However, Qin Wendian still stood there steadily, feeling the difference in his defense after breaking through to the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. How weak! Qin Wendian stared at Ouyang Mutian as he faintly spoke, I don't mind the fact that your Ouyang aristocrat clan betrayed the alliance back then. Today, I gave you guys another chance, yet you guys don't know how to cherish it. Since you guys believe in strength so much, I, Qin Wentian, shall use strength to annihilate all of you today. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian dashed out. Ouyang Mutian's countenance turned ashen. With an intention of his will, his constellation started howling, condensing into a constellation that floated behind him. Boundless energy was channeled into his body as the lightning in his palms condensed into a corporeal violet lightning sword. Lightning danced wildly in the air as he stomped towards Qin Wentian. He wanted to see exactly how powerful a young man at the peak of Heavenly Dipper could be. In the blink of an eye, Qin Wentian arrived before Ouyang Mutian only to see his opponent's scarlet demon halberd piercing out. In that instant, the entire scene seemed to have transformed into a dreamscape. Ouyang Mutian felt as though his body was being pulled into the world of this halberd. The halberd strike of Qin Wentian seemed to have sliced through the void, but the destructive power it contained caused Ouyang Mutian's hairs to stand on end. Die! Ouyang Mutian roared in rage. He had no other choice but to clash head-on. The lightning energy collided with the scarlet demon halberd. In that instant, Ouyang Mutian only felt countless illusions appearing in his mind. He couldn't see the real world clearly. The divine weapon in Qin Wentian's hands was a 5th-ranked divine weapon. When it attacked, it also contained the power of illusions, able to bring one into a dreamscape. Such a terrifying attack wasn't able to stop the scarlet demon halberd from advancing. The spectators only saw the lightning being compressed unceasingly as Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd slammed into Ouyang Mutian's body. At this instant, Ouyang Mutian felt despair. He felt the invasion of death. Every part of his body was already corroded by the endless destructive might, as though he was about to disintegrate. At this moment, the despair on his face was exceptionally clear under the illumination of the dazzling lightning, but it was also a shocking sight. I overestimated you. This was the last voice Ouyang Mutian heard. It was the voice of Qin Wentian. As the sound of his voice faded, Ouyang Mutian's body directly exploded, turning into nothingness. He disappeared into the void just like that, as though he had never existed. At the instant Ouyang Mutian's body exploded, the hearts of the spectators below trembled, including the 2 ascendants from the Jiang clan. That domineering young man who returned in such a domineering manner appeared in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. With a cultivation base at the peak of Heavenly Dipper, he used an incomparably tyrannical strength to slay the ascendant of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, Ouyang Mutian. Not only that, this might not be Qin Wentian's strongest state. That sentence of him saying that he overestimated Ouyang Mutian indicated that from Qin Wentian's perspective, Ouyang Mutian who was at the celestial phenomenon realm might not be an opponent on the same level as him. In that case, how strong was Qin Wentian's strongest combat prowess exactly? This was the question in the hearts of the spectators. How strong was Qin Wentian exactly? The countenances of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were like dead ashes. Today, the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan was supposed to be the start of the Ouyang aristocrat clan's hegemony over Grand Xia. All of them were filled with excitement and confidence, but never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that at the start of the marriage ceremony, their dreams would turn into nothingness. The doomsday of the Ouyang aristocrat clan had suddenly descended. The other 2 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan were in the midst of battle when they suddenly discovered Ouyang Mutian's death. Their hearts pounded violently as a sense of sorrow appeared in their hearts. They suddenly felt that earlier, Qin Wentian had indeed given them hope, but he was rejected by them. And at this moment, despair started to corrode their hearts. The black-robed old granny from the Mystic Moon Hall and old Xing were currently surrounding a newly ascended ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The black-robed old granny had already been at the celestial phenomenon realm for many years and her strength was slightly stronger compared to her opponent. In addition to the cooperation of old Xing, she was able to force her opponent into a corner. With just a single glance, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, arriving at the battlefield where Fairy Qingmei, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall and the Ouyang ancestor were fighting. Qin Wentian, why must you be so ruthless? The countenance of the Ouyang ancestor paled. Are you joking? First, you betrayed us, forcing my brother's girlfriend to marry Ouyang Zichen. Not only that, you even imprisoned Ouyang Guangsheng. If I didn't come today, would you have killed my brother to prevent future troubles? Qin Wentian sarcastically spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, the spectators all exclaimed in shock. So it turned out that in the other battlefield, Old Xing's rod had already smashed the head of the newly ascended ascendant from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Old Xing and the black-robed old granny were also heading towards this battlefield. At this moment, it was no longer 2 against 1, but 5 against 1 instead. 2 ascendants have fallen, the Ouyang aristocrat clan is finished. This was the thought that appeared in the hearts of the spectators. The countenances of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan were all like dead ashes. They stared at the battlefield in the air before shifting their gazes onto Ouyang Guangsheng. Qin Wentian had slaughtered his way into the Ouyang aristocrat clan because of him. At this moment, an intense feeling of regret welled up in their hearts. If the old ancestor hadn't treated Ouyang Guangsheng in such a manner, the wedding today would have been between Ouyang Guangsheng and Jiang Ting. If that was the case, Qin Wentian wouldn't have come here to mess things up, he would have come here to congratulate them instead. What a beautiful ending that would have been. Ouyang Guangsheng was also a heaven chosen of their Ouyang aristocrat clan. It was just that he had a conflict with the old ancestor, causing the old ancestor to be unhappy with him. Guangsheng, persuade Qin Wentian to stop. We no regret. An expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan spoke to Ouyang Guangsheng. Ouyang Guangsheng's heart trembled violently when he heard these words. He clenched his fists tightly as he stared at the silhouettes in the air. Today, if it wasn't for his brother Qin Wentian's domineering actions, would the Ouyang aristocrat clan even ask for peace? Most probably, he could only watch helplessly as Jiang Ting was forced to marry Ouyang Zichen. And just like what Qin Wentian had said earlier, the Ouyang aristocrat clan might even kill them all to prevent future troubles. And now, an expert from the Ouyang aristocrat clan was telling him to persuade Qin Wentian to stop. Was this even possible? Chapter 666. Ouyang Guangsheng had long seen through the Ouyang ancestor. Back then when the Ouyang ancestor broke the alliance agreement, he already had a conflict with the Ouyang ancestor. From then on, the Ouyang ancestor didn't even look him in the eye. The Ouyang aristocrat clan had already marginalized him. His parents, grandfather, and those closest to him were all stripped of their authority, becoming dispensable existences in the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Even his grandfather's brothers and uncles started to give them the cold shoulder. This included them marrying Jiang Ting to Ouyang Zichen and imprisoning him, Ouyang Guangsheng. None of these people stood out to speak up for him. Even when Qin Wentian was here, they still acted as they pleased. Only now, when they discovered that 2 ascendants had fallen and the Ouyang aristocrat clan's momentum was already at an all-time low, did these people truly start to panic. Are all of you truly regretting this? Ouyang Guangfeng mocked. Guangsheng, the blood of our Ouyang aristocrat clan flows in your veins. Could it be that you really want to watch our Ouyang aristocrat clan decline and even walk towards destruction? That person pleaded. The sudden change in the situation caused him to feel heartache. Even though he hated Qin Wentian, he could only plead with Ouyang Guangsheng. How old was Qin Wentian? He was of the same generation as Ouyang Guangsheng and he could already kill ascendants. Did he really think that the Ouyang aristocrat clan would seek revenge from Qin Wentian? What a fool's dream. When you guys imprisoned me, did any of you ever think that I, Ouyang Guangsheng, also have the blood of the Ouyang aristocrat clan flowing in my veins? A mocking smile appeared on Ouyang Guangsheng's face. The words of these people were too hypocritical. There's no need to plead with Ouyang Guangsheng. This old fogey will die for sure. Qin Wentian's voice rang out, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. They inclined their heads and stared in the air. Although the strength of the Ouyang ancestor wasn't bad, he was still in a precarious situation. The sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall had already landed a heavy blow on him, causing him to cough out blood as his countenance turned pale. Qin Wentian, I'm willing to compromise. Let Ouyang Quangsheng marry Jiang Ting and form an alliance with you. Ouyang Quangsheng shall inherit the position of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The Ouyang ancestor hurriedly spoke as his old face turned red. As the sound of his voice faded, the attacks of Fairy Qing Mei and Old Xing arrived. It's too late. What qualifications does the current Ouyang aristocrat clan have to talk about an alliance with me? Qin Wentian calmly spoke. Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, he struck out with his palm. A terrifying gigantic palm suddenly appeared in the void, seemingly capable of plucking the sun, moon, and stars, and smashed down with a loud bang. The Ouyang ancestor lifted his palms and blasted out with rage, shattering the palm imprints. However, how fast were the attacks of celestial phenomenon ascendants? The attacks of the other four ascendants continued to rain down on the Ouyang ancestor. Quangsheng. The experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan all stared at Ouyang Quangsheng, yet Ouyang Quangsheng's countenance didn't waver in the slightest. Everyone was focused on the battle in the air, all the way until the Ouyang ancestor was destroyed. When Patriarch Ouyang's body fell to the ground, the entire void was silent. Today, 3 ascendants from the transcendent power of Grand Xia, the Ouyang aristocrat clan, had fallen at the same time. This was similar to the Great Solar Qin clan back then. It was just that back then, the Great Solar Qin clan forced Qin Wentian to use all the methods he could think of, borrowing all the strength he could muster. But today, Qin Wentian annihilated 3 ascendants from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. From the start till the end, there was no suspense at all. It's over. 3 ascendants had fallen, the Ouyang aristocrat clan was truly finished. This marriage alliance had become a joke. When Qin Wentian led the 4 ascendants up the stage, his demonic gaze swept over the members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Everywhere his gaze passed by, no one dared to look straight at him. Scram! Qin Wentian glanced at the crowd before shifting his gaze onto Ouyang Zichen. Ouyang Zichen's body was trembling. Today was supposed to be the day of his grand wedding, a day of glory that belonged to him. However, from the start till the end, he could only stand there like a wooden puppet, becoming a spectator. Until now, when that pair of arrogant eyes stared at him, telling him, the groom, to scram as well. Such humiliation caused his aura to surge uncontrollably. Arg! Ouyang Zichen. A thunderous roar rang out. After which, a palm imprint slammed into Ouyang Zichen from behind. Ouyang Zichen coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body slumped weakly onto the ground. He stared at the person who attacked him. It was an elder of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. A mocking smile flickered in Ouyang Zichen's eyes as he slowly closed his eyes. How lamentable! Qin Wentian led his men to kill 3 ascendants from the Ouyang aristocrat clan. However, not a single member of the Ouyang aristocrat clan dared to retaliate and even killed him instead. How lamentable, but this was reality. The winner takes all and the losers are vilified. The 3 ascendants had already died. The members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan didn't wish for their entire clan to be buried together with them. Qin Wentian stared at the person who killed Ouyang Zichen. He didn't say anything. That person then spoke. The Ouyang aristocrat clan is willing to accept Ouyang Quangsheng as their clan lord. The Ouyang aristocrat clan has let down Ouyang Quangsheng first. This is also the opinion of all of us. The others nodded their heads. What else could they do? Take revenge and then die together? Qin Wentian didn't express his opinion. He turned his gaze onto Ouyang Quangsheng as he stated, Ouyang, I've already said before I came here today to congratulate you and Jiang Ting. In addition, I also want to inform you to attend my wedding. As for the matter regarding the Ouyang aristocrat clan, I'll leave it up to you. You and Mo Qingqing are also getting married? Ouyang Quangsheng froze. Qin Wendian smiled as he nodded. Upon hearing the name Mo Qingcheng, the hearts of the crowd trembled. Back then, the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, Qin Wendian had destroyed the entire Pill Emperor Hall because of her. To think that she was still alive. Now that he and Mo Qingcheng were about to get married, the Pill Emperor Hall was going to be doomed. You're really something. Ouyang Guangxing lightly punched Qin Wendian. Jiang Ting also walked over, pulling on Ouyang Guangxing's hand as she smiled at Qin Wendian. Wendian, thank you. Oi, Jiang Ting, don't be so sarcastic. I still have to invite you to be Qingqing's bridesmaid. Qin Wendian laughed. Sure, in that case I shall go and be a supporting character. Jiang Ting sweetly smiled. In her heart, she was truly grateful to Qin Wendian. It was only because of a single sentence from Qin Wendian that the Jiang clan wasn't embroiled in the storm today. At this moment, the two celestial phenomenon ascendants from the Jiang clan felt joy in their hearts when they saw the relationship between Qin Wendian and Jiang Ting. Personally witnessing the death of three celestial phenomenon ascendants, the two of them were extremely moved. Those were existences on the same level as them, and not only that, the Ouyang ancestor was even stronger. At this moment, they no longer dared to treat Qin Wendian as an ordinary junior. To this young man, Grand Xia was simply too small. Ouyang Guangxing turned, staring at those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan as a resolute look flashed in his eyes. Evidently, he had already made a decision in his heart. I don't want to be the clan leader of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Ouyang Guangxing's words instantly caused the hearts of those from the Ouyang aristocrat clan to tighten as their countenances instantly turned incredibly unsightly. However, Ouyang Guangxing continued, however, what you all said is right. After all, the blood of the Ouyang aristocrat clan flows in my veins. I don't wish to pursue the things my clan has done to me. Today, I hope that no one will bear grudges for the deaths of those three. All grudges shall end here. For those who are still alive, no matter what you have done in the past, Ouyang Guangxing will not pursue it. As for the position of clan leader, Ouyang Guangxing will let bygones be bygones. As for the position of clan leader, Ouyang Guangxing will leave it to my grandfather. Although Ouyang Guangxing felt resentment in his heart, regardless of his grandparents or his parents, they all had an inseparable connection with the Ouyang aristocrat clan. Although he felt resentment towards many in the Ouyang aristocrat clan, many of them had treated him well. However, he wasn't so naive. He definitely wanted power, and he wanted it to be his own. Before this, he had already experienced the coldness of reality. From today onwards, the Ouyang aristocrat clan would continue to exist, but with the help of Qin Wendian's influence, the authority of the Ouyang aristocrat clan would all be in the hands of those closest to him. With regards to this point, Ouyang Guangxing was incomparably resolute. He wouldn't pursue those who had treated him coldly, but it was inevitable that he would cleanse their authority. Good, since you can think this way, we feel gratified in our hearts. The experts from the Ouyang aristocrat clan heaved a sigh of relief. After experiencing the ups and downs of life, their state of heart had also undergone a transformation. Now, they could only hope that Ouyang Guangxing, who had a good relationship with Qin Wendian, would be able to lead the Ouyang aristocrat clan back to its former glory. As for the grudges of today, they could only bury it forever. Let's clean up the mess. Guangxing, let the wedding between you and Jiang Ting continue. What do the two seniors of the Jiang clan think? Naturally. The two ascendants of the Jiang clan nodded. Being able to see Jiang Ting's happiness, we are also happy. Hypocrites. Everyone cursed in their hearts, yet no one dared to voice it out. At this moment, Qin Wendian stared at the crowd that came to watch the wedding as he smiled. On the day of my brother Ouyang Guangxing's wedding, let me make an announcement as well. I, Qin Wendian, will be the successor of the Azure faction of the past, and will be the Azure Emperor Palace's palace lord. In that case, there's no longer a need for the Azure Emperor Palace to continue existing in the Azure continent. Either you submit, or you vanish. Those from the Azure Emperor Palace can return now to inform your sect to make a decision. The hearts of the crowd pounded violently. After the Ouyang aristocrat clan fell from the ranks of a transcendent power, would the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure continent be replaced by the Azure faction of the past? Fairy Qingmei's eyes flashed with a smile when she heard Qin Wentian's words. As for old Xing, his body trembled involuntarily. This day had finally arrived. With Qin Wentian as the successor of the Azure Emperor Palace, not only would he be able to regain the glory of the Azure Emperor Palace, he would even surpass it. Reforming the Azure Emperor Palace was only the first step. They all knew that Qin Wentian's target was the entire Grand Xia Empire. This point was also known to those from the Mystic Maiden Palace, but none of them dared to say it out loud. At this moment, they could only sigh in their hearts. If they missed this opportunity, it would never come again. There's one more thing. If there's anyone from the Pill Emperor Hall here today, go back and tell them that I've once said that one day, I will definitely raise the Pill Emperor Hall to the ground. The Pill Emperor Hall can just wait and see. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the crowd was once again in an uproar. The Pill Emperor Hall would be destroyed as well. This young man who returned to Grand Xia, what kind of storm would he create in Grand Xia? Chapter 667. 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan had fallen, and Ouyang Quangxing's kin controlled the entire clan. The wedding between Ouyang Quangxing and Jiang Ting was naturally carried out smoothly, but after such a thing happened, the atmosphere was no longer the same. But to Ouyang Quangxing and Jiang Ting, there were already no regrets. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian bringing so many experts here today, the consequences would be unimaginable. Back then when Ouyang Quangxing befriended Qin Wentian, he only felt that Qin Wentian was interesting and had outstanding talent. Who would have thought that today's outcome would be like this? He didn't say the word, thank you. There was no need to use the word, thanks, to express the feelings between brothers. Only Jiang Ting thanked Qin Wentian. After the banquet, the experts from the various major powers all departed, informing their respective clans and sects of what happened here. Very swiftly, this news spread throughout the Azure continent. As for Qin Wentian, he bid farewell to Ouyang Quangxing after the banquet and led his men towards the Azure Emperor Palace. The transcendent power of the Azure continent, the Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace personally led his men to welcome Qin Wentian, expressing their willingness to form an alliance. Such an initiative caused many to silently praise the Azure Emperor Palace for its boldness. Based on the brilliance Qin Wentian had displayed in the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the ending of the Azure Emperor Palace was already decided. By sending their sect to welcome Qin Wentian, they could gain the reputation of forming an alliance. But if they waited for Qin Wentian and the rest to enter the Azure Emperor Palace, they would be forced to submit using their strength. Naturally, there was another option. The people of the Azure Emperor Palace could give up all of their foundations and leave the sect, directly handing it over to Qin Wentian and the others. In that case, the Azure Emperor Palace would become a laughingstock and the Azure Emperor Palace in Grand Xia would still belong to Qin Wentian. To them, taking the initiative to submit was the best ending. But since the Azure Emperor Palace Lord was able to do this, his state of mind was also extraordinary. The restructuring of the Azure Emperor Palace was already inevitable. When Qin Wentian ascended the stairs to the Azure Emperor Palace, those who had once made things difficult for him in the Emperor's Star Academy were all trembling in fear. However, Qin Wentian didn't even spare them a glance. They couldn't help but to mock themselves in their hearts. In the eyes of this young man who had grown up, their existences were simply insignificant. Within the Great Hall of the Azure Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian sat on the Palace Lord's throne. Fairy Qingmei and Old Xing, the two ascendants, stood on his left and right. Although they were seniors of Qin Wentian, now that Qin Wentian was the Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace, in such a formal setting, Qin Wentian would naturally be the leader. They were also willing to serve as a foil. The sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall and the black-robed old lady sat on the seats of honor. Zhong Yi from the Zhong clan, Bing Yuchan from the Ice Spirit sect, and the clan leader of the White Deer Institute were seated below. The people in the Great Hall were all important characters of the Azure Emperor Palace. And at this moment, the original Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace stood below, staring at the young man before him as he sighed in his heart. The new generation would always surpass the old, the times were changing too quickly. This demon-level genius who wasn't even 30 yet killed Ouyang Mutian with a cultivation base at the Heavenly Dipper realm. His eyes were so deep and sharp that no one could see through him. In the face of so many ascendants as well as him, the Palace Lord, Qin Wentian could still be so calm and collected. This young man had the heart of a ferocious tiger, his ambitions higher than the heavens. A mere Azure Emperor Palace, or even the entire Grand Xia Empire, would only be a part of his exciting life. I heard that there's still a Supreme Elder in the Azure Emperor Palace. Where is he? Qin Wentian stared at the Azure Emperor Palace Lord as he emotionlessly spoke. The Azure Emperor Palace had existed for so many years, and there were even shadows of the Azure Emperor's faction within the sect. But in reality, this faction only existed in name. The Azure Emperor Palace Lord started, he didn't know how to reply. After a moment of silence, he replied, "The Supreme Elder prefers peace and quiet, please don't blame him." Might as well. Since he prefers peace and quiet, it's best for him to cultivate in the depths of the mountains. It's too cruel to ask him to bother about the secular world. From today onwards, the position of Supreme Elder will be taken over by Fairy Qingmei. She will be in charge of managing the affairs of the Azure Emperor Palace. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. The original Palace Lord's countenance stiffened as his heart trembled, silently musing at how ruthless this young man was. In the future, you will take on the role of the Vice Palace Lord of the Azure Emperor Palace. How about it? Qin Wentian stared at the original Palace Lord, Chu Lanjiang. Chu Lanjiang's heart trembled, but he soon nodded his head, okay. Although he knew this was unavoidable, he couldn't help but to sigh in his heart. As a celestial phenomenon ascendant, he was actually appointed as a Vice Palace Lord. In the entire transcendent power of Grand Xia, he should be the only one with such a title. For the other ascendants, they were either old ancestor-level characters, or clan leaders of their respective sects or supreme elders. Naturally, Chu Lanjiang could also choose to leave. But if he did so, he wouldn't be able to set his heart at ease. After all, this was the foundation of his blood, sweat, and tears. Not only that, in the depths of his heart, there was still a faint hope that Qin Wentian would be able to bring the Azure Emperor Palace to a new height. Old Xing will still be in charge of the punishment hall. Zhong Yi, Bing Yuchan, Patriarch Bailu, the three of you will assist the Supreme Elder, Fairy Qingmei, and Old Xing in reorganizing the Azure Emperor Palace. Qin Wentian ordered Chu Lanjiang. Chu Lanjiang naturally understood Qin Wentian's meaning. Reorganizing the Azure Emperor Palace was a must. Wentian, why don't our Mystic Moon Hall join the Azure Emperor Palace as well? At this moment, the sect leader of the Mystic Moon Hall spoke to Qin Wentian, her words causing the hearts of everyone present to tremble. Although the Mystic Moon Hall had always fought side by side with Qin Wentian, they were still a transcendent power that belonged to Grand Xia. Merging into the Azure Emperor Palace, this was no small matter. With regards to this matter, the sect leader and the black-robed old matriarch had already discussed it before coming to this decision. They knew that Qin Wentian's ambition was to unify Grand Xia, and based on Qin Wentian's personality, he wouldn't mistreat them. Since Grand Xia was unified, and all the transcendent powers submitted to the Azure Emperor Palace, what would the Mystic Moon Hall do? Merging into the Azure Emperor Palace was a good choice. Right. Qin Wentian straightforwardly nodded his head in agreement. Sect leader, the two of you will also take on the position of Vice Palace Lords, in charge of the Mystic Moon Hall. The leader of the Mystic Moon Hall started. She stared at the smile on Qin Wentian's face as she bitterly smiled, seems like you've already made up your mind. The Mystic Moon Hall of the Azure Emperor Palace would still be the Mystic Moon Hall, and they would still be in charge of it. This was indeed the best possible scenario. Qin Wentian smiled as he stared at everyone, okay, I'll have to trouble all of you for the next few days. You're preparing to slack off again. Luo Huan laughed as she stared at Qin Wentian. When she saw Qin Wentian sitting on the throne, her heart couldn't calm down at all. Back then, she had once saved a young man, yet he had already achieved such accomplishments today. If this didn't happen in reality, she wouldn't even dare to believe it. Sister Luo Huan, you have to help me manage my resources well. Qin Wentian laughed. Right now, Luo Huan also had a lot of authority in her hands. He heard that the Azure Emperor Palace was extremely wealthy, having control over an entire auction street, as well as many transaction pavilions, marketplaces, and inns. The Azure Emperor Palace began a grandiose reorganization. The experts of the original Azure Emperor Palace were all redistributed. The Zong Clan, Ice Spirit Sect, White Deer Institute, Supreme D Clan and others all expanded their strength. The Punishment Hall under Old Xing naturally did the same as well. However, the Information Division of the Celestial Lake Palace, with Fairy Qingmei as the leader, didn't increase their manpower. They only took over the Information Division of the original Azure Emperor Palace, and the original strength of the Azure Emperor Palace was split up. Many other matters were extremely complicated, but Qin Wentian didn't have to do anything, handing all these trifling matters over to them. He was happy to be idle. As for the outside world, a huge wave of commotion had already erupted. Qin Wentian's return, annihilating the three ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, forming an alliance with the Jiang clan, domineeringly taking control of the Azure Emperor Palace. This news instantly circulated throughout Grand Xia, and after all, on the day of the marriage alliance between the Ouyang aristocrat clan and the Jiang clan, the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia had sent people over. For a period of time, the entire Grand Xia was in an uproar, discussing about the legendary character who had just returned. In this storm, the Pill Emperor Hall was the first to bear the brunt of it. The Pill Emperor Hall wasn't the Azure Emperor Palace. Back then, Qin Wentian had already left a message saying that he would raze the Pill Emperor Hall to the ground. Now that he had returned, the moment Qin Wentian led his forces into the Pill Emperor Hall, it would only be a massacre. The experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were all filled with trepidation. The first thing they did was to dispatch experts to the Hua clan, the Star-Seizing Manor, the Wang clan of the War Continent, the Shi clan of Ginku, and the Yen Prefecture. More than half of the transcendent powers in the 9 continents sent their experts to pay a visit. The crowd felt as though they could smell a storm brewing. Among these transcendent powers, some had a grudge against Qin Wentian, and some had something to do with the death of the Azure Emperor back then. Now that they saw a character even more tyrannical than the Azure Emperor rising up, they had to do something. Given Qin Wentian's current domineering attitude, killing 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan and ascending to the Azure Emperor Palace, it could be said that those who submit will prosper, those who defy will perish. If this continued on, they were worried that in the entire Grand Xia, only Qin Wentian would be left. At the same time, in the Ginka continent, there was an extremely terrifying power in the dark. This power wasn't a transcendent power, but none of the transcendent powers in Grand Xia dared to underestimate them. In fact, they even felt a sense of reverence towards them. Today, the Pill Emperor of the Pill Emperor Hall personally came here. Pill Emperor, what brings you here today? In a dimly lit pavilion, the Pill Emperor was led here. The person who received him was a grey-robed man, standing there with his back facing the Pill Emperor, his entire person resembling a spectre in the darkness. Dark Shadow Sovereign, how have you been? The Pill Emperor stared at the back of the grey-robed man as he faintly spoke. A light laugh rang out as the grey-robed man turned and stared at the Pill Emperor. The grey-robed man's entire body was shrouded, only revealing a pair of blood-red eyes that exuded a terrifying aura. The Pill Emperor just paid a huge price to exchange for a 5th-ranked divine weapon, and now you're here to look for me? How extravagant. The grey-robed man sinisterly laughed. Speak, who do you want me to kill? Qin Wentian. The Pill Emperor spoke. Being able to force the Pill Emperor to hire someone to assassinate Qin Wentian, one could very well imagine how much pressure Qin Wentian gave the Pill Emperor Hall. Sure, but I'm afraid your Pill Emperor Hall won't be able to afford it. The gray-robed man laughed. A peak-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, even if he has the combat prowess of a celestial phenomenon, can it be compared to the various transcendent powers back then? The Pill Emperor coldly spoke. The Azure Emperor? How can his price be compared to Qin Wentian? Qin Wentian is someone who killed a disciple of the royal sacred sect and even managed to escape unscathed. The price to kill him is 100 times higher than the Azure Emperor. You better think carefully. The blood-red eyes stared at the Pill Emperor, causing his heart to tremble violently. Only now did he realize how terrifying this young man was. Chapter 668. The Pill Emperor left the power the Dark Shadow Sovereign was in, returning with disappointment in his heart. It wasn't that he didn't want to kill Qin Wentian. Back then, he had personally witnessed those experts descending from the heavens referring to Qin Wentian as young master. Now that Qin Wentian had returned in such a domineering manner, in addition to the price offered by the Dark Shadow Sovereign, the Pill Emperor understood how great the threat of Qin Wentian was. There was a high possibility that the Pill Emperor Hall would be destroyed. However, the price of killing Qin Wentian was something he truly couldn't afford. Even if he used up the entire Pill Emperor Hall, they still wouldn't be able to afford it. From this price, one could tell that Qin Wentian's weight in the heart of the Dark Shadow Sovereign was comparable to 100 Azure Emperors. Who? Drawing in a deep breath, the Pill Emperor increased his speed as he sped towards the direction of the Moon continent. Right now, every second was extremely precious to him. He didn't know when Qin Wentian would return to the Pill Emperor Hall. The news of the Pill Emperor going to look for the Dark Shadow Sovereign was known to all. But after that, the Pill Emperor Hall in the Moon continent released a piece of news stating that they were willing to make peace with Qin Wentian and apologize for what happened in the past. In fact, they were even willing to pay any price to compensate Qin Wentian. As this news circulated out, the entire Grand Xia was in an uproar. The Pill Emperor Hall actually admitted defeat. As a transcendent power in Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall was actually willing to apologize and compensate. From this, one could very well imagine how strong the threat Qin Wentian posed to them was. Regardless of whether they were trying to stall for time or sincerely wanted to make peace with Qin Wentian, the Pill Emperor Hall had already lost all their face and prestige. However, it was evident that Qin Wentian had no intentions of making peace with the Pill Emperor Hall. His voice rang out from the Azure Emperor Palace, telling the ascendants of the Pill Emperor Hall to bring Luo He and the other important members of the Pill Emperor Hall to the Azure Emperor Palace. Only then could the Pill Emperor Hall continue to stand tall in Grand Xia. As the sound of his voice faded, Grand Xia could clearly feel Qin Wentian's arrogance. They also understood Qin Wentian's attitude. It was impossible for him to forgive the Pill Emperor Hall. No matter what the Pill Emperor Hall did, no matter what treasures the Pill Emperor Hall offered, he would never forgive them. This point could be seen from how that young man dragged the demon's sword for 100,000 miles, not hesitating to sacrifice his own blood to split the Pill Emperor Hall apart. From this, one could see how deep his obsession was. If he didn't avenge this debt, how would he have the face to marry Qingcheng? Things haven't concluded yet. Not long after the announcement from the Azure Emperor Palace, several silhouettes descended from the skies in the Azure continent, paying a visit to Qin Wentian. If outsiders knew who these people were, they would probably be shocked speechless. These people were all transcendent characters of Grand Xia. Among them were the ancestor of the Shi clan of Ginkgo, the ancestor of the Wang clan of the War continent, the ancestor of the Hua clan of the Moon continent, the Sword Monarch of the Swallow continent, the sect leader of the Sky Demon sect of the Demon continent, the Manor Lord of the Star-Seizing Manor. Not a single one of these experts wasn't at the celestial phenomenon realm. Such a terrifying lineup was sufficient to cause the entire Grand Xia to tremble. However, on the same day, they all arrived at the Azure Emperor Palace, paying a visit to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian didn't appear. In the Great Hall, the person receiving the guests was none other than Fairy Qingmei. It has been so many years, Fairy Qingmei's beauty is even more outstanding than before. The ancestor of the Shi clan smiled at Fairy Qingmei. He was an extremely ancient expert. It has been so many years, yet you still haven't died yet. Hiding here in Grand Xia, isn't it very interesting? Fairy Qingmei smiled in a seductive manner. The ancestor of the Shi clan didn't mind. In truth, for those with talent, they would have left Grand Xia when they were at the Heavenly Dipper realm, just like Junyu. Although they stood at the peak of Grand Xia, they still knew their limits. Hence, they would rather stay in Grand Xia, protecting their clans or sects, watching as their descendants grew up, hoping to nurture a heaven chosen that was more outstanding than them. Why don't we see sect leader Qin? The ancestor of the Wang clan exuded an intense sharpness. Today, they came here to have a chat with Qin Wentian, yet they didn't expect him to be so brazen. With so many of them here, he didn't even want to see them. Sect leader Qin is currently very busy and isn't in the sect. Please forgive him. Fairy Qingmei smiled. Even if he's very busy, don't tell me he doesn't even have time to meet with us. The Sword Lord was the leader of the Swallow Swordsmen. His combat prowess was exceedingly high and he was known as the Swallow Sword Lord, the Monarch of Swords. I've already said that sect leader Qin isn't currently in the Azure Emperor Palace. Fairy Qingmei still had a smile on her face, yet her heart was extremely cold. These people came with ill intentions. With so many transcendent characters here at the same time, how could there be anything good? Haha, he's really done his best to wash his hands clean. Sect leader Qin returned in such a domineering manner, killing 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, domineeringly ascending to the Azure Emperor Palace, and even adding the Mystic Moon sect to his banner. Does he have the ambition to dominate Grand Xia? An old monster from the Sky Demon sect coldly spoke, his words causing the gazes of everyone to land on Fairy Qingmei, as though they wanted to see something from her eyes. If Qin Wendian really had the intention to dominate Grand Xia, wouldn't they have no choice but to form an alliance to deal with Qin Wendian? In these few thousand years, other than the Azure Emperor back then, only Qin Wendian had enjoyed such treatment. Fairy Qingmei's heart turned cold when she heard this. What happened to the Azure Emperor back then seemed to be repeating itself on Qin Wendian. These people were once again trying to form an alliance. I really have no idea what sect leader Qin is thinking. Speaking of the ambition to dominate Grand Xia, which of the transcendent powers present here doesn't have it? Fairy Qingmei's gaze swept over everyone. Among the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, there wasn't a single one who didn't want to dominate it. It was just that none of them had the ability to do so. Hee, Fairy Qingmei's temper is still the same as before. The Shi ancestor laughed. Beside him, that old man from the Wang clan extended his perception outwards, wanting to scan the entire Azure Emperor Palace. Fairy Qingmei furrowed her brows. What are you doing? He really isn't here. An expression of interest appeared on the Wang ancestor's face as he stared at Fairy Qingmei. Now that Qin Wendian has left the Azure Emperor Palace, isn't he afraid that the foundation he established would be destroyed? Are you threatening the Azure Emperor Palace? Fairy Qingmei stared at the Wang ancestor as her countenance gradually turned sharp. The Wang ancestor had no fear whatsoever as he stared back at her. The atmosphere in the Great Hall was filled with a tempest. Even if it's a threat, so what? Fairy Qingmei laughed. The reason why Palace Lord Qin left was because firstly, he didn't expect that all of you would come here together. You all truly regard our Palace Lord Qin highly. Secondly, given the strength of all of you, it's true that you all have the ability to annihilate the Azure Emperor Palace. However, don't forget how Ouyang Mutian died, and also don't forget Palace Lord Qin's age. From what I know, although there are some who have grudges with Palace Lord Qin, other than the Pill Emperor Hall, there isn't anyone else who has a death grudge with Palace Lord Qin. But if the Azure Emperor Palace is destroyed, all of you better think carefully. Would you be able to withstand the bloody revenge of a 28-year-old ascendant? How could Fairy Qingmei's words not be a threat? Her meaning was extremely clear. You guys can annihilate the Azure Emperor Palace, but as long as you haven't killed Qin Wendian, it's best not to act recklessly. How could they not understand the meaning of Fairy Qingmei's words? The Sword Lord coldly spoke, "From Fairy Qingmei's words, it's impossible for us to meet with Qin Wendian?" "That seems to be the case." An evil smile appeared on Fairy Qingmei's face. Qin Wendian was everything to the Azure Emperor Palace. Naturally, they had to prevent these people from ganging up on Qin Wendian. "I'll have to trouble you to pass on a message to Palace Lord Qin. His talent is extraordinary, Grand Xia is too small for him. It's best for him not to stir up a storm in Grand Xia. As for the matter of offending him in the past, as long as Palace Lord Qin says a single word, I believe the Wang clan and Hua clan would be more than willing to apologize." The Shi ancestor laughed. "Palace Lord Qin doesn't need to interfere in the matters of Grand Xia." "Fine, I will pass on your message." Fairy Qingmei coldly laughed. "Since this is the case, we will take our leave." The Shi ancestor stood up, and the others all stood up as well. They turned and departed, vanishing from sight in an instant. Faint voices drifted through the air. "This Qin Wendian is truly too arrogant, to think that he wouldn't even be able to meet with him." Fairy Qingmei walked out of the great hall as several silhouettes appeared beside her. All of them had cold smiles on their faces as they stared at the departing figures. The speed at which they grouped up was truly fast. If we were to invade Grand Xia, I'm afraid these people would do the same thing to the Azure Emperor back then. Old Xing's eyes were cold. Hence, we have to warn Wendian to be more cautious and not let the Azure Emperor repeat the same mistake. In addition, we have to be careful of a certain hidden power. A cold light flickered in Fairy Qingmei's eyes, as though she was thinking of something that happened back then. If it wasn't for the hidden power, the Azure Emperor wouldn't have died. Wendian is even more outstanding compared to the Azure Emperor. History will not repeat itself. Although old Xing was filled with reverence for the Azure Emperor, he couldn't help but to admit that Qin Wendian's brilliance was many times more dazzling compared to the Azure Emperor back then. This was why the moment he returned, he could cause a commotion in Grand Xia, causing the Pill Emperor Hall to compromise and the other transcendent powers to form an alliance. The moon continent of Grand Xia was still bustling with activity. The Pill Emperor Hall was located right in the middle of the moon continent. Right now, the topic of discussion in the entire Grand Xia revolved around the Pill Emperor Hall because Qin Wendian had returned. The Pill Emperor Hall towered into the skies. Even from afar, one could still see the towering structure of the Pill Emperor Hall. Every time they witnessed this scene, the people of the moon continent would sigh in admiration at Qin Wendian's achievements. The reason why the Pill Emperor Hall didn't rebuild the Pill Emperor Hall was because they wanted to remember this humiliation. Recently, Shu Wanyu's state of heart fluctuated. She had already broken through to Heavenly Dipper and had an extraordinary status in the Shu clan. Although she didn't marry into the star-seizing manner and was married to Yang Fan, she gradually forgot about it. Every time she thought back to the culprit who had harmed her back then, she no longer hated him as much as before. Right now, his name had already shaken Grand Xia. The moment he returned, he caused an unprecedented storm and became the idol of countless people in Grand Xia. Shu Wanyu would occasionally think back to the days when she was kidnapped by Qin Wendian. She would even look at herself in the bronze mirror to admire her own beauty. Being able to attract Yang Fan's attention, Shu Wanyu could already be considered a rare beauty. Yet back then when that fellow kidnapped her, he didn't even have the slightest bit of desire for her. Every time Shu Wanyu thought of this, she would feel anger rising in her heart. She didn't know why she would occasionally reveal such emotions. Maybe it was because Qin Wendian was simply too famous. Staring at the Great Hall from afar, Shu Wanyu couldn't help but recall these memories. What a handsome fellow! At this moment, one of Shu Wanyu's sisters exclaimed. Shu Wanyu cursed in a low voice, "Love-struck fool. Wanyu is really handsome. Look at that demeanor, that focus, it's as though he's gazing at the Pill Emperor Hall." Shu Wanyu's sisters continued, staring at a young man not far away. That young man's gaze was only focused on the Pill Emperor Hall, as though the people around him didn't exist. Love-struck fool. Shu Wanyu silently mused. She turned and stared at the young man her sisters were talking about. And as soon as she saw him, she couldn't shift her gaze away. Her right hand covered her mouth as an expression of astonishment appeared on her face. It's him, he's here. Shu Wanyu's heart pounded rapidly. Was he going to the Pill Emperor Hall? She stared at the surroundings of the young man, there was no one else but him. Shu Wanyu's heartbeat quickened. Was he going to do what he did in the past, going to the Pill Emperor Hall alone? Her heart was in a state of chaos, and there was even some worry in her heart. Under her gaze, Qin Wendian walked step by step towards the Pill Emperor Hall, arriving at the top of the 99 steps. Chapter 669. In front of the Pill Emperor Hall, a white-robed figure had his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the majestic Pill Emperor Hall. The passers-by all had faint smiles on their faces as they stared at him. Was this another junior that revered the Pill Emperor Hall? In front of the Pill Emperor Hall, a silhouette slowly walked over, pointing to Qin Wendian. You can't stay here any longer, leave quickly. Qin Wendian calmly glanced at them. After which, he slowly walked forwards, ascending the stairs step by step. The Pill Emperor Hall, he had arrived. Impudent. A cold intent flashed in the eyes of those in front of him as they stepped towards Qin Wendian, their auras at the peak of Yuanfu erupted forth. Boom! Qin Wendian stomped heavily on the ground, causing the bodies of those in front of him to be slammed heavily onto the stairs as they coughed out mouthfuls of blood, their countenances turning pale. Someone dares to barge into the Pill Emperor Hall. An enraged voice thundered out, the expressions of those in front of him were all filled with rage. Barging into the Pill Emperor Hall was simply courting death. The passers-by all had expressions of interest on their faces. There was actually someone who dared to barge into the Pill Emperor Hall. Did he not want his life anymore? Only Shu Wanyu watched as Qin Wendian ascended step by step, as great waves of shock rocked her heart. Indeed, he was still the same as before, barging into the Pill Emperor Hall alone. Above the Pill Emperor Hall, numerous silhouettes soared through the air. Even before they arrived, a loud voice already rang out, who dares to be so impudent? Kill him without mercy. The voice of that person was filled with killing intent. An instant later, the experts arrived, but the instant they saw Qin Wendian, the countenance of that person froze as his countenance paled. His body trembled lightly, as though he had just witnessed an inconceivable scene. He had come, Qin Wendian had returned. Once, when Qin Wendian left, he left behind a cold message. The day he returned would be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. Was today the day of judgment Qin Wendian spoke of? They were clearly monitoring the Azure Emperor Palace, and even Fairy Qingmei hadn't left the Azure Emperor Hall. Not only that, all the experts were gathered there. Yet at this moment, Qin Wendian actually appeared in the Pill Emperor Hall. Did he intend to destroy the entire Pill Emperor Hall alone? The others in the surroundings had also seen Qin Wendian before. The instant they saw him, they were so frightened that their bodies trembled, their hearts shattered. This young man had once left a deep impression on them. Once, from afar, they saw Qin Wendian wielding a demon's sword and slashing apart that towering great hall. Now, he had returned and he was even stronger than before. He didn't borrow the power of the demon's sword and killed Ouyang Mutian, a celestial phenomenon ascendant of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. He used his most powerful attack to kill Ouyang Mutian, and his cultivation base was still at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. He led his men and swept through the 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, not leaving a single one alive. He brought his men to the Azure Emperor Palace, and the Azure Emperor Palace Lord personally came out to welcome them. The spectators from afar were all dumbfounded when they saw the reactions of the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall. It was as though they were all extremely fearful of this young man. Could it be? The spectators suddenly thought of a possibility as their hearts pounded. Such a young silhouette that could cause the experts from the Pill Emperor Hall to be so fearful. In the entire Grand Xia, there was only one person. Qin Wendian. The crowd thought of a name as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. That white-robed figure, was that Qin Wentian? He had finally returned and was now alone, ascending the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian didn't pay attention to the reactions of the crowd. He continued upwards step by step, and everywhere he passed by, a tempest of sword chi manifested. Boom! As his foot landed, a sword intent manifested. Momentarily, the experts above Qin Wentian all felt their hearts being pierced by 1,000,000 swords as their countenances turned as pale as paper. Boom! Another step. The faces of the people on the platform were drained of all color. Their hearts were shattered, and despair could be seen in their eyes. After that, their bodies collapsed, falling onto the stairs and rolling down the stairs. They were already dead. They're all dead. The spectators below gradually gathered as their hearts pounded. That young man who had returned was indeed even more terrifying than before. He continued ascending, there was no longer anyone who dared to block his path. However, the number of experts in the airspace above the Pill Emperor Hall only grew more and more as a towering might bore down on Qin Wentian. His astral souls and astral novas all erupted forth, transforming into a tempest of destruction that bore down on Qin Wentian. Kill him. As soon as the order was given, endless windstorms descended. Destructive turbulence appeared in the void, crushing the earth. The destructive power seemed to have transformed into a black windstorm. How terrifying! The hearts of the spectators shuddered. The Pill Emperor Hall had turned out in full force, wanting to kill Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, the white-robed figure inclined his head as he stretched out his palms. In the center of his palms, a resplendent light circulated, as though it could penetrate through the tempest of destruction and the turbulence in the air. That resplendent light transformed into a gigantic palm imprint that could pluck down the sun, moon, and constellations. In the air, at the location where the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were gathered, an incomparably terrifying gigantic palm imprint manifested, slamming down towards them. With a thunderous boom, it was unknown how many of the experts gathered here died, as the entire area was in chaos. How powerful! He actually became so terrifying. Although the entire Grand Xia was filled with rumors regarding Qin Wentian, when the spectators personally witnessed his strength, they couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. It was rumored that he was only 28 years of age. How heaven-defying was he? At this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette slowly rose up into the air. His countenance was as calm as ever, and from the start till the end, he hadn't spoken a single word. However, his eyes seemed to contain a strange magical power, causing the hearts of those who stared into his eyes to tremble uncontrollably. The surviving experts of the Pill Emperor Hall started retreating. Qin Wentian ascended, while they retreated unceasingly. At this moment, that young man was like a fiendish god, nobody dared to challenge him. Qin Wentian ascended the stairs, stepping onto the Pill Emperor Hall as he stared at the countless faces in front of him. Among the crowd, Luohi's silhouette could be seen. At this moment, Luohi's heart was numb as she stared at Qin Wentian. Back then, when Qin Wentian slaughtered his way into the Pill Emperor Hall, wielding the demon sword and slaughtering everything in his path, Luohi already knew what a grave mistake she had made. Back then, when she faced Qin Wentian, she only treated him as a junior. She had never truly regarded Qin Wentian in her eyes, even if he was the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. But a few years later, when she heard Qin Wentian's name again, she discovered to her shock that she, Luohi, no longer had to look up to this junior of hers. Just like now, when that white-robed silhouette casually stood there, the entire Pill Emperor Hall trembled. How terrifying was this influence? In the entire Grand Xia, other than Qin Wentian, there wasn't a second person who could make the Pill Emperor Hall fear him to such an extent. Luohi. Just when Luohi was sighing in her heart, the white-robed silhouette coldly spoke, "You actually still have the face to live on. Everything I've done is for the sake of the Pill Emperor Hall." Luohi drew in a deep breath as she slowly spoke. Back then, she had given Mo Qingqing a chance, although the chance she gave her now was nothing but a joke. Qingqing is already a 5th-ranked alchemist. Qin Wentian faintly spoke, his words like a bolt of lightning striking Luo He's heart, causing her breathing to turn erratic. Her countenance turned pale. Her former disciple, the disciple whom she had abandoned to nurture a corpse, had actually become a fifth-ranked alchemist. How ironic was this? She didn't doubt Qin Wentian's words. Given Qin Wentian's current strength and status, there was no need for him to lie to her. I've let Qingqing down. She's truly a good disciple, other than when it came to you, she didn't listen to me at all. Luo He sighed. Qingqing has never mentioned you or the Pill Emperor Hall to me again. Qin Wentian calmly continued, just based on what you did to Qingqing back then, you deserve to die. But back then in Chu, if it wasn't for you, Qingqing would have already died. Maybe, she didn't know how to face the consequences. After all, you had once saved her life. If not, the strength Qingqing wielded would already be enough to annihilate 10 Pill Emperor Halls. So, I won't kill you. Destroy your own cultivation base and become an ordinary mortal. Qin Wentian stared at Luo He, causing her to feel an indescribable feeling in her heart. Just based on Qingqing's strength alone, it was enough to annihilate 10 Pill Emperor Halls. You are too confident. A voice drifted over. In the air, a constellation appeared, the Pill Emperor and another ascendant appeared. Qin Wentian didn't look at them, he was still staring at Luo He. I'm giving you the best chance to repent. Don't make me do it. Luo He fell silent, a tear could be seen at the corner of her eyes. No one could understand her feelings right now. It was she who single-handedly destroyed the most outstanding disciple in the history of the Pill Emperor Hall, causing her to stand against her. Initially, she had the chance to marry Mo Qingqing to Qin Wentian. At that time, she didn't even dare to imagine how glorious the Pill Emperor Hall would be today. Everything had been ruined by her. Her arrogance, her conceit, had ruined everything. She was the sinner of the Pill Emperor Hall, she had let down her disciple, the beauty of Grand Xia. Fine. Luo He's countenance dimmed as she suddenly laughed. Luo He. The members of the Pill Emperor Hall turned to Luo He only to see her smiling at her father, the Pill Emperor. I, Luo He, truly have no face to live on. After speaking, a terrifying destructive might erupted from her palms as boundless scorching flames ignited. With a ferocious slap, she blasted her palms into her own body, instantly incinerating it. Luo He coughed out a mouthful of blood, but she was still smiling at Qin Wentian. I've done wrong, but I've done my duty as a master. To me, becoming a cripple is even more terrifying than death. Luo He had a smile on her face as she collapsed onto the ground. She could only use her life to repent. Luo He. The countenance of the Pill Emperor paled, his rage towering up to the heavens. A terrifying flame descended from the skies, shooting towards Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he dashed forward like a beam of light. Sword Qi lacerated the heavens and earth as a rain of swords rained down from the skies. Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms, causing thunderous rumbling sounds to echo out as the silhouettes in front of him were all destroyed. Where do you think you're going? An incomparably gigantic flaming palm imprint descended from the skies, grabbing towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms as a resplendent light flashed. With a deafening boom, the flaming palm imprint was destroyed. Qin Wentian was akin to a great rock as he continued flying forwards. In just a short instant, he appeared in front of the demon's sword that was stabbed into the ground of the Pill Emperor Hall. I'm back. Qin Wentian stared at the demon's sword. Stretching out his hand, he slid his finger across the body of the sword, dripping his blood onto it. Instantly, the demon's sword glowed with a towering light. You hate the fact that the heavens are too low. I'll bring you with me to break through the heavens and fight against the immortals and devils of the 9 heavens. Qin Wentian murmured. Inclining his head, he soared up into the skies as his blood dripped down the body of the demon's sword. He was already 1,000 meters in the air, his hands gripping the hilt of the demon's sword. Chapter 670. Qin Wentian's finger sliced through the body of the demon's sword. Blood flowed unceasingly from his fingertips, swirling around the demon's sword. At this instant, a blood-colored light of over 100 meters radiated from the demon's sword as demonic qi towered up into the heavens. That terrifying blood-colored halo of light caused the hearts of those who stared at it from afar to tremble in fear. A sigh rang out from within the demon's sword. After which, a towering sword keening could be heard as the sword might danced together with the blood-colored halo of light. A few years ago, this white-robed young man transformed into a primordial great rock and split apart the Pill Emperor Hall, leaving the demon's sword behind. However, no one was able to pull it out. Now, he returned once again, feeding his blood to the demon's sword, as though he wanted to awaken it. This scene caused the spectators of the Pill Emperor Hall to be stunned. Shu Wanyu stared dumbfoundedly as waves of shock rocked her heart. If she didn't witness it personally, she wouldn't be able to imagine how crazy that young man was. "Stop him!" the Pill Emperor roared. He and another ascendant of the Pill Emperor Hall, as well as an old man from the Pill Emperor Hall, sped towards the direction of Qin Wentian. They were extremely fearful of Qin Wentian. None of them were like the Pill Emperor Hall, who had personally experienced what happened a few years ago. Also, no one knew that Qin Wentian still had a terrifying power hidden in the shadows. If it wasn't for Jun Yu's return back then, they truly wouldn't have wanted to antagonize Qin Wentian. Hence, they publicly apologized and even offered to pay any price to resolve the grudge between them and Qin Wentian. Sadly, Qin Wentian didn't accept it at all. The Pill Emperor was naturally afraid. A few years ago, Qin Wentian had to transform into a primordial great rock before he could unleash the might of a peak-level heavenly dipper sovereign. But now, just Qin Wentian's combat prowess alone was already comparable to a celestial phenomenon ascendant. If he was allowed to pull out the demon's sword, the consequences would be unimaginable. Two constellations hung in the air, resplendent and resplendent. The constellation of the Pill Emperor contained a 9-colored flame, filled with a terrifying destructive might. That was the constellation manifested by the old man from the Pill Emperor Hall. His constellation was pitch black in color, with black flames flickering within it. Amidst the descending flames, an aura of death could be felt. "Kill!" the King of Dan roared in anger. His celestial phenomenon blossomed with 9-colored light, transforming into a terrifying 9-colored flame that shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. Blood dyed the 1,000-meter-long demon's sword red. At this moment, he could feel the humming of the demon's sword, the shrill screeches of the demon's sword, as well as the pride of the demon's sword. "Rise!" Qin Wentian's expression was solemn. His sword trembled unceasingly. He pulled the 1,000-meter-long sword out of the ground. In an instant, a blood-red halo swept across everything. A terrifying sword might soared into the sky and crashed into the 9-colored flame that was falling towards Qin Wentian. With a loud rumble, the flame exploded and blossomed into a magnificent fiery light. What a terrifying sword energy! The Pill Emperor's countenance turned pale. The demon's sword was still the same as before, but Qin Wentian had grown even stronger. "Kill!" As Qin Wentian's gaze swept over, those experts from the Pill Emperor Hall abruptly halted their steps. That towering sword might directly penetrated through their bodies, causing their bodies to fall to the ground one after another, as though they were nothing more than weeds. "Your cultivation base is no different from them in my eyes. What qualifications do you have to fight against an immortal or devil from the 9 heavens?" A voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. It was none other than the voice of the demon's sword. Back then, the demonic divinity's sacrificial transformation art was irreversible. It was none other than the demon's sword that transmitted its voice to Qin Wentian. Impart the immortal vanquishing swordplay to him. The great Tao begins from the beginning. How can there be an immortal or devil in the world? You hate the heavens for being too low, why don't you dance with me? Qin Wentian's voice was solemn. Yet another palm imprint filled with destruction blasted towards Qin Wentian. This palm imprint was inscribed with the flames of death, containing a fearsome pressure of death. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped in the air, his robes lacerated as a resplendent light circulated around him. It was as though he was clad in a fiend god armor. His body expanded in size, transforming into the body of a fiend god. Roaring at the heavens, he blasted out with his palms as a force as heavy as thunder swept over everything. Boom! The palm imprint of destruction exploded apart in the air. The crowd stared in shock at the silhouette of Qin Wentian as their hearts turned numb. Even without the demon sword, his attack power was already sufficient to shake the attacks of ascendants from the Pill Emperor Hall. How strong exactly was he exactly? The countenances of the Pill Emperor and that ancient expert turned ashen as they stared at the fiend god body of Qin Wentian. The resplendent light circulating around him seemed to be indestructible. The two of them stood on the left and right of Qin Wentian. 9 colored flames and black-colored flames unceasingly gushed forth, unceasingly descending from the sky. With Qin Wentian in the center, the entire space around him was filled with destructive energy. You obtained an immortal art again. The voice of the demon sword drifted over when it saw the aura radiating from Qin Wentian. After which, its tone turned arrogant as it coldly spoke, I hate the heavens for being too low, I refuse to fly. So what if you have truly transformed into a fiend god? The arrogance in its voice towered up the heavens, as though even fiend gods wouldn't be able to control it. Seems like I've overestimated you. Qin Wentian loosened his grip on the demon's sword. He inclined his head and stared at the destructive flames gushing towards him as he spoke with arrogance, even if I don't need to borrow your strength, I can still annihilate the Pill Emperor Hall. It's just that our encounter can only be considered fate. You hate the heavens for being too low, I want to soar above the 9 heavens and fight against all the immortals and fiend gods. When we met, we originally wanted to shatter the heavens, yet you refused to face me. As the sound of his voice faded, the bloodline in Qin Wentian's body erupted forth frenziedly. Behind him, a fearsome shadow of a demon manifested. Summon. As his astral soul appeared, Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the skies. Instantly, a boundless divine glow cascaded downwards, causing the light radiating from him to grow even more resplendent. Numerous fearsome astral war beasts descended from the skies, exuding an unexcelled might. Kill them for me. Qin Wentian commanded. The demonic beasts trampled the heavens and earth, rushing towards the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall. A towering sword chi manifested around him as he lifted his palms and blasted outwards. In that instant, a destructive might filled every corner of the skies. The destructive flames were all extinguished at the same instant, as though they were shattered by the sword chi. The experts of the Pill Emperor Hall naturally heard Qin Wentian's incomparably arrogant words. They also knew that these words weren't meant for them, but for the demon sword instead. That demon sword was like a demon, it actually had a life of its own, and was conversing with Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian was arrogant enough to say that even without the demon sword, he could fight against the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall alone. Since the demon sword refused to dance with him, why would there be a need for him to dance with it when he soars above the 9 heavens one day? As the sound of his voice faded, the sword chi radiating from the demon's sword grew even more terrifying. It was as though the demon's sword was enraged. The countenances of the Pill Emperor and the old freaks from the Pill Emperor Hall were all incredibly unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian's attack prowess was so strong that it caused their hearts to tremble. If he broke through to celestial phenomenon, how terrifying would he be? Seal of life and death, see life and death. That old freak saw that Qin Wentian had broken free from the demon sword. For the first time, he directly attacked Qin Wentian. The resplendent light of death enveloped the heavens and earth as an ancient imprint shot through the air, blasting towards Qin Wentian. That ancient imprint seemed to contain the power of a constellation, leaving behind a trail of death light in the air. Qin Wentian's palms were no longer his palms of flesh and blood. Instead, they were palm imprints filled with the aura of destruction. With a howl of rage, he stomped on the heavens and earth, suppressing immortals and devils. His body transformed into numerous silhouettes, all of them rushing out at the same time. The seal of life and death was directly shattered as countless star-seizing palm imprints gushed forth with illusory demonic energy, rushing towards that old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian's strength didn't merely originate from his usage of true intents. His superiority in astral energy, his bloodline, and his innate techniques were all manifested in all aspects. Finally, when he unleashed his attacks, the might he exuded was truly towering to the heavens. Ordinary peak-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't be able to match up to him. Even for celestial phenomenon ascendants who had condensed their constellations, their aura wouldn't be much stronger than his. That old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall faced the endless attacks. His celestial phenomenon energy converged as he frenziedly blasted out with both his palms, defending against Qin Wentian's attack. However, Qin Wentian's silhouette was like a phantom. With a grab of his palm, the entire space seemed to have transformed into an illusory dimension. That old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall saw Qin Wentian brandishing his scarlet demon halberd as he dashed over. Yet another series of afterimages appeared. The countenance of that old freak from the Pill Emperor Hall turned pale. He no longer had the strength to withstand such an attack. Bzzz. His silhouette wanted to flee, yet he only saw that the boundless beams of light were already shooting over. His body directly exploded, transforming into nothingness. The Pill Emperor initially wanted to help, but upon witnessing the death of that old freak, his body stiffened as he drew in a deep breath. Although his strength was many times stronger compared to that old freak, Qin Wentian's strength had already completely stunned him. His gaze swept downwards, the astral war beasts had already started their slaughter. Fresh blood dyed the Pill Emperor Hall red, even the setting sun in the sky was dyed red. Everything was the same as the day he left back then. The day he returned would be the day of judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian's silhouette slowly descended, landing on the demon's sword. He slowly spoke, "Have you thought it through clearly? If you follow me, I won't bring disgrace to you." The humming of the sword intensified, the gigantic body of the demon's sword trembled violently as the earth cracked apart unceasingly. A storm of destruction that caused despair to ravage the entire Pill Emperor Hall. It was as though doomsday had arrived. Chi. Deep cracks appeared on the surface of the Pill Emperor Hall. Boundless sword chi gushed forth as the experts below died one after another. The majestic Pill Emperor Hall that spanned over 100 miles started to crumble apart. Bzzz. The countenance of the Pill Emperor paled. His silhouette directly soared through the air as an illusory sail appeared beneath his feet. This was none other than a speed-type divine weapon the Pill Emperor exchanged for. Even if he couldn't defeat the Pill Emperor, he could still flee. "Since you are so brazen, I shall be your witness. If in the future, you still can't stand up to the 9 heavens, I shall personally slay you." A similarly arrogant voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears. The silhouette of the Pill Emperor had already vanished, only to be replaced by a beam of light that slashed the void into two. The silhouette of the Pill Emperor abruptly appeared in the distance as his body was directly torn into two, falling down from the skies. Just like this moment. The voice of the demon's sword rang out once more. Qin Wentian still stood arrogantly on the sword hilt, his countenance calm. However, the countless experts outside the Pill Emperor Hall all shuddered involuntarily when they saw the body of the Pill Emperor falling down from the skies. From today onwards, there would no longer be a Pill Emperor Hall in Grand Xia. Chapter 671. Qin Wentian stared ahead. This demon's sword was truly arrogant, he had long known this point. Back then when he pulled out the sword from the Sword Reverend City, he didn't use a blood sacrifice. This demon's sword was even more arrogant than him. Qin Wentian had never seen such an arrogant person before, let alone a sword like this. This sword is extraordinary, it must have a shocking origin. Qin Wentian mused. If it didn't have a shocking origin, how would it dare to say that the heavens were too low? Don't worry, I won't bring shame to your name. However, do you intend to follow me like this? Qin Wentian faintly spoke. The body of the demon's sword was over 1,000 meters long. How could it be controlled? Although I'm willing to be your witness, I won't take the initiative to lend my strength to you. I really want to see how you are going to fulfill your arrogant words today. The sword chi radiating from the demon's sword tore apart the 9 heavens. With a shrill howl, a terrifying storm of destruction ravaged the earth. Countless silhouettes from the Pill Emperor Hall inclined their heads, staring at the storm of destruction, their eyes filled with despair. An intense beam of light pierced through the air. Qin Wentian suddenly discovered that the 1,000-meter-long demon's sword had transformed into a 3-chi-long sword, radiating a white light that illuminated the skies. It exuded a boundless demonic aura, akin to an evil sword. This sword was incomparably demonic. It whistled through the air, directly piercing into the towering Pill Emperor Hall. Everywhere it passed by, everything was reduced to rubble. When the sword pierced into the Pill Emperor Hall, the entire Pill Emperor Hall had already vanished without a trace. The entire Pill Emperor Hall had been completely destroyed, turning into dust as sand and gravel drifted about in the air. Only the white demonic sword gleaming with a blood-red light remained, piercing through the dust, displaying its sharpness. Qin Wentian glanced at the demonic sword as a demonic smile appeared on his face. After which, he stepped out, moving towards the location where the Pill Emperor died. Everywhere he passed by, the spectators all retreated. The void sail landed on the ground, containing a strand of void energy within it. This Pill Emperor had long prepared a path of retreat. With this void sail, if it wasn't for the demonic sword unleashing its might, Qin Wentian wouldn't have been able to stop the Pill Emperor. Qin Wentian kept the void sail before retrieving the Pill King ring. Nobody dared to touch these items. Qin Wentian even destroyed the Pill Emperor Hall. Who would dare to take his spoils of war? Unless he was tired of living. After returning to the Pill Emperor Hall, Qin Wentian slowly walked towards the demon's sword in the midst of a cloud of dust. The demonic glow emanating from the sword was retracted, no longer radiating any light. It was as though it was just an ordinary sword, devoid of light, quietly standing there. Qin Wentian stretched out his hand and unsheathed the sword. He raised his head and looked at the void. He took a step forward and soared into the sky, disappearing into the void in the blink of an eye. He's gone. The crowd inclined their heads, staring at the disappearing silhouette. Their hearts that were filled with waves of shock gradually calmed down, but as they stared at the Pill Emperor Hall that had turned into dust, they couldn't help but feel their hearts twitching. The next time he returned would be the Day of Judgment for the Pill Emperor Hall. And now, the Day of Judgment has arrived. Another transcendent power of Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall, was razed to flat ground. 2 ascendants died in battle, and there was no one left alive in the entire Pill Emperor Hall. All of them were killed by that demon sword. Now that this sword was in the hands of Qin Wentian, it was unknown how many storms of blood would be stirred up in the future. The Pill Emperor Hall has been destroyed, becoming history. Even now, there were still people who couldn't believe what they had just seen. The Pill Emperor Hall had stood tall in the Moon continent for far too many years, yet it vanished without a trace just like that. Ruanyu, you already knew that he was Qin Wentian. The voice of Shu Ruanyu's good friend trembled. No wonder Shu Ruanyu had been staring at him all this while. So it turned out that he was none other than the young man who had once kidnapped Shu Ruanyu. Shu Ruanyu had a bitter smile on her face. She could only sigh in her heart at the fickleness of the world. If back then she had known that he would have such a glorious future, what would she have done when she was kidnapped by him? More and more people gathered in front of the Pill Emperor Hall. Staring at the majestic ancient hall that had once stood tall in front of them now turned into dust, with not a single trace of it left behind, they were all speechless for a long time. The news of the Pill Emperor Hall's destruction soon spread throughout Grand Xia. The various transcendent powers once again felt uneasy. From Qin Wentian, they could feel an intense threat. Someone who could destroy the Ouyang aristocrat clan, the Pill Emperor Hall and control the Azure Emperor Palace with a flip of his hand, how could the transcendent powers not feel trepidation in their hearts? The experts from the transcendent powers all became even more enthusiastic. Ever since the gathering of the various transcendent powers in the Azure Emperor Palace, there were signs of an alliance once again wanting to negotiate with Qin Wentian. And as expected, a voice drifted into the Azure Emperor Palace. 3 days later, the transcendent powers of Grand Xia would visit the Azure Emperor Palace to negotiate with the Azure Emperor Palace Lord, Qin Wentian. The transcendent powers hoped that Qin Wentian would give them face and not miss the appointment. Momentarily, the situation in Grand Xia became extremely complicated. There were signs that the various transcendent powers would form an alliance to contend against Qin Wentian. This caused the spectators to sigh in admiration at Qin Wentian's strength. In these thousands of years, only he was able to cause the transcendent powers to be so afraid of him. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Outside the Azure Emperor Palace, the various transcendent powers descended from the skies. The lineup this time around was even stronger compared to the previous time. This time around, Qin Wentian didn't conceal himself. Upon sensing the auras of the various transcendent powers, he led Fairy Qingmei and the rest to the stairway leading to the Azure Emperor Palace as he stared at the silhouettes of the various transcendent powers. The white-robed young man stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. His white robes fluttered in the wind as the transcendent powers stared at Qin Wentian. Their hearts couldn't remain calm. Was he really as young as the rumors said? Yet, he was able to cause such a huge commotion in Grand Xia. Heroes are young, Palace Lord Qin's talent truly makes all of us perspire in shame. A voice drifted over. Qin Wentian stared at the various transcendent powers, his countenance was calm as he asked, "Why did everyone come to my Azure Emperor Palace?" Qin Wentian, recently you have caused so much chaos in Grand Xia. 3 ascendants of the Ouyang aristocrat clan fell, the Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed and the Azure Emperor Palace submitted. What do you want exactly? The Wang ancestor stared at Qin Wentian, his countenance sharp. Qin Wentian's eyes slowly turned over, landing on him as he replied, "What has that got to do with you?" The countenance of the Wang ancestor stiffened as he coldly snorted, truly the arrogance of the young. Grand Xia will no longer allow you to behave so atrociously. An evil smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he mockingly glanced at the Wang ancestor. Who the hell do you think you are? Are you even qualified to speak to me in this manner? You. The countenance of the Wang ancestor stiffened. He didn't expect that even with so many experts here today, Qin Wentian would still be so arrogant. Qin Wentian. The Sure ancestor called out, the transcendent powers of Grand Xia have always lived in harmony with each other. You have gone too far. Gone too far. Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto the Sure ancestor. In that case, I should forget what the Pill Emperor Hall did to me back then. You guys are truly shameless. Fairy Qingmei couldn't help but to mock. In Grand Xia, the strong preyed on the weak. Which of these transcendent powers didn't swallow up countless others? Now, they actually dared to say that Qin Wentian had stirred up trouble in Grand Xia. If they had the strength, they would have done things even more ruthlessly than Qin Wentian. Not only that, up until now, Qin Wentian had yet to touch any of the transcendent powers that had nothing to do with him. Regardless of the Pill Emperor Hall, Ouyang aristocrat clan, or the Azure Emperor Palace, the grudges between them were extremely deep. Even before he touched the benefits of these transcendent powers, they had already started to gang up on him. Let's get back to the main topic. What do you want? Qin Wentian calmly asked. We cannot allow such a storm to continue in Grand Xia. Qin Wentian, given your talent, why do you still want to stay in Grand Xia? The Sure ancestor stated. Do I still need your permission to stay here? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. The Sure ancestor shook his head, that's not my intention. This time around, I came here to negotiate with you. We cannot allow any more transcendent powers to be destroyed in Grand Xia. I know there were some transcendent powers that offended you in the past, and they are willing to compensate you. When you can bully others, you will bully them, but when you can't, compensate them? The leader of the Mystic Moon Hall coldly laughed. This is already our concession. The sure ancestor stated. What if I don't agree? Qin Wendian narrowed his eyes as he stared at the sure ancestor. If my information isn't wrong, you should be someone from the Chu country under the control of the Green Cloud Pavilion, right? This time around, the reason you came back is for your wedding with Mo Qingcheng. The Chu country is your homeland, your family and friends are all there. The Wang ancestor coldly stated. As the sound of his voice faded, an incomparably ferocious tempest erupted forth from Qin Wendian as a terrifying demonic qi towered up into the skies, gushing towards the Wang ancestor. His eyes gleamed with a demonic light as his killing intent gushed forth. The various transcendent powers all silently cursed the Wang ancestor in their hearts. The moment he said those words, things would definitely go south. The Wang ancestor suddenly felt the demonic qi soaring up into the skies, as well as Qin Wendian's gaze. His heart also trembled slightly, but he soon regained his composure and coldly snorted, locking gazes with Qin Wendian. The Ouyang aristocrat clan forced my brother's wife to marry someone else. I only killed the 3 main culprits and didn't touch the other members of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. In the Azure Emperor Palace, I didn't kill a single person, nor did I spill any blood. Only the Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed because of my blood feud with them. Back then, the Wang clan tried to hunt me down several times, but I still haven't settled my grudge with them. You said you are here to apologize, but now, you are actually threatening my clan? Qin Wendian's voice was filled with an icy killing intent. Although he wanted to unify Grand Xia, he had never thought of massacring the other transcendent powers. He only wanted to make the transcendent powers submit to him, just like how Grand Xia was back then. He had never thought of causing rivers of blood to flow in Grand Xia. But now, even before he could settle the score with the Wang clan, the Wang ancestor had already threatened his entire clan. No matter what I say, if Grand Xia suffers any more troubles, you shall bear the consequences. The Wang ancestor's voice was ice cold. Send our guests out. Qin Wendian swept his gaze over the crowd as he coldly stated. Everyone, please leave. Fairy Qingmei coldly stared at the crowd. Since the Wang ancestor had already investigated Qin Wendian's clan, it was evident that he wasn't the only one who had such intentions. Qin Wendian, are you sure you want to do this? The Swallow Swordlord's sword qi was ice cold, whistling through the air. Qin Wendian slowly walked away, he didn't turn back. This caused the countenance of the Swallow Swordlord to turn incomparably cold as he stated, everyone, he doesn't give you any face at all. Let's leave. The eyes of the various transcendent powers flickered with killing intent as they departed. They didn't dare to act recklessly. If they failed to kill Qin Wendian, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 672. The transcendent powers of Grand Xia gathered at the Azure Emperor Palace to threaten Qin Wendian. If Qin Wendian dared to encroach on the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, they would join forces to deal with Qin Wendian. This news caused a huge commotion in Grand Xia. Everyone wanted to see how the insufferably arrogant Heaven's Chosen would respond. However, Qin Wendian didn't reply, nor did he destroy any more transcendent powers. However, a major event happened in Ginkgo. Because of the appearance of the royal mausoleum, the various transcendent powers of Grand Xia still had their troops stationed in the surroundings. Although those who entered the royal mausoleum wouldn't be able to walk out alive, they still kept a close watch on the situation. And now, in the process of their surveillance, a power actually moved into the ancient kingdom and chased away the troops. At the same time, they paid a huge price to hire many skilled craftsmen to appear in the ancient kingdom and rebuild it. This matter instantly attracted a great deal of attention. Those experts from the various major powers who were monitoring the Azure Emperor Palace came over. After which, they received news that the Azure Emperor Palace of the Azure Continent was going to relocate, and the new location was none other than the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. And as expected, not long after this news circulated out, experts from the Azure Emperor Palace arrived at the ancient kingdom one after another, directing the rebuilding of the ancient kingdom. This news instantly caused a commotion, engulfing the entire world. The Azure Emperor Palace moved to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. For tens of millions of years, not a single transcendent power dared to encroach on the ancient kingdom. The meaning behind the Azure Emperor Palace's actions was extremely clear. The entire Grand Xia could hear the voice of the Azure Emperor Palace. Moving to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, wanting to become the king of Grand Xia once again. This could be considered Qin Wendian's strongest retaliation against the various transcendent powers. After that day, it was as though Qin Wendian had vanished completely. He didn't directly respond to the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, but this time around, the entire Grand Xia could see his determination. I want to dominate Grand Xia. Who would dare to touch the Azure Emperor Palace? Most probably, at this moment, the transcendent powers wouldn't be able to sleep in peace. Because of the appearance of Qin Wendian, the transcendent powers of Grand Xia interacted with each other more frequently than in the past few hundred years. No one dared to obstruct the reconstruction of the ancient kingdom. Not a single transcendent power dared to take the lead and oppose the Azure Emperor Palace. They had once gone up to the Azure Emperor Palace to tell Qin Wendian not to touch any of the transcendent powers of Grand Xia, yet they didn't tell Qin Wendian not to rebuild the ancient royal palace. Right now, Qin Wendian didn't take the initiative to create trouble and only wanted to relocate to the ancient royal palace. If they were to obstruct him, wouldn't that infuriate Qin Wendian completely? No one knew. In the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, the craftsmen were busy working day and night. In the air outside the ancient kingdom, there was a void sail with a white-robed figure standing on it, observing everything that was happening. Other than Qin Wendian, Yunmengyi was also there. The unification of Grand Xia will not change its name. Your wish will naturally be fulfilled. The things I want to know, when will you tell me? Qin Wendian stared at Yunmengyi as he asked. I won't say anything at all. Yunmengyi's countenance flickered with a smile. Her limpid eyes stared at Qin Wendian as she placed her hands on Qin Wendian's arms in an extremely intimate manner. Unless one day, I become your woman. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows. With a flick of his sleeves, he pushed Yunmengyi's arms away. Get down. Qin Wendian indifferently spoke. Yunmengyi froze for a moment before her countenance returned to normal. She walked down from the void sail and stared at Qin Wendian. Am I so unattractive? I treat you as my friend. Qin Wendian emotionlessly spoke. After which, he turned and the void sail arced through the air, instantly vanishing from Yunmengyi's sight. In the western regions of Grand Xia, there was a desolate mountain range with a few chaotic cities around it. In this territory, there was a desolate area that was rarely visited by humans. It was a secret area of the Great Xia dynasty. The Grand Xia Empire had existed since ancient times. It had countless cities and was flourishing, with the 9 continents being the most prosperous. However, in the vastness of Grand Xia, there were also secret realms that had yet to be discovered. Countless experts had entered these secret realms before, but for those who entered, it was extremely hard for them to exit. No matter how strong they were, these secret realms were known as death grounds. The Devil Statue Cliff was one of the secret realms in Grand Xia. It was rumored that the Devil Statue Cliff was a sacred ground for the Devil Path, and there was once an extremely powerful devil that walked out from there. There was an ancient legend about the Devil Statue Cliff. In the past, a great war between immortals and devils occurred here, and eventually, immortals and devils fell here. Devil cultivators suppressed the immortals and used a supreme devil statue to suppress the immortals, creating the Devil Statue Cliff today. Throughout the history of Grand Xia, there would always be some characters who entered the Devil Statue Cliff, but all of them only managed to step into the periphery before exiting in a hurry, not knowing the secrets of the depths. As for those who entered the depths of the Devil Statue Cliff, only a few of them managed to exit. And even if they did, they would all become crazed characters, their minds in a daze. At this moment, Qin Wendian arrived at the entrance of the Devil Statue Cliff. His calm eyes flickered with a hint of longing. That lass Bai Qing had disappeared in the devil statue cliff. Wasn't her guts too big? She actually came here with Fan Lu and the others, and even now, there was no news of her. To Qin Wentian, Bai Qing was like a younger sister of his. That silly lass didn't hesitate to place a blade on her neck to release him from the Bai residence, and even broke off relations with her father and elder sister. Every time he thought of Bai Qing, Qin Wentian would feel pain in his heart. Only this lass Bai Qing could cause Qin Wentian to feel a deep sense of tenderness. Little lass Bai Qing. Staring at the towering statues in front of him, Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. The grand wedding was imminent. Qin Wentian shouldn't take the risk. Especially since the devil statue cliff was a forbidden ground of Grand Xia, he shouldn't risk his life. However, his return to Grand Xia this time was firstly to complete his wedding with Qingcheng, secondly to find Bai Qing, and thirdly, to settle the matters of Grand Xia. If he couldn't ascertain Bai Qing's safety, he would feel extremely uneasy. Back then when that lass cultivated the chaotic art of the heavenly devil, she still didn't forget to protect him. On the Heavenly Fate Rankings platform, she also protected him, fighting for him. Even when he injured her, she still cried out for Wentian Gage. These memories were still vivid in his mind. How could he forget such feelings? The devil statue cliff was extremely vast, spanning a radius of a few hundred miles. Qin Wentian stared ahead as a resolute look flashed in his eyes. After which, he stepped out and entered the devil statue cliff. 1,000-meter-tall devil statue stood before him. It was like an ancient devil that was guarding the entrance to the devil statue cliff. A gust of wind gusted by as Qin Wentian entered with his sword strapped to his back. At the instant he entered, a terrifying devil qi gushed forth. Instantly, Qin Wentian felt as though he had entered a world of devils. Numerous devil statues stood guard in all directions, their eyes staring at Qin Wentian, causing his heart to shudder violently. There are so many entrances, and each entrance leads to a different heaven and earth. Qin Wentian stared at the entrances in front of him. He didn't hesitate and rushed out, but he didn't enter the depths of the devil statue cliff. Very swiftly, when Qin Wentian inclined his head, the space above him was filled with devil statues. Right now, he couldn't tell which direction he was heading in, nor could he find the exit. Bzzz 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 bzzz. Abruptly, boundless sound waves appeared in the air, as a terrifying devil might awakened. In that instant, Qin Wentian only felt his heart shuddering. Shifting his gaze forward, he saw an incomparably gigantic devil statue there. This devil statue was illusory and seemed to be able to move. Devil chi swirled around it, and the devil sounds it spoke penetrated through space, seeping into Qin Wentian's ears. That pair of eyes filled with devilish intent stared at Qin Wentian. With just a single glance, the astral energy in Qin Wentian's body was in a frenzy, as though there was a terrifying devil will gushing into his sea of consciousness. A boundless amount of energy gushed forth as terrifying rumbling sounds rang out. Qin Wentian only felt a towering pressure pressing down on him. In that instant, he felt as though he was hallucinating. Numerous supreme devil statues were directly rushing towards him, blotting out the sun. Qin Wentian stepped out. Instantly, a terrifying sword chi tempest engulfed the heavens and earth. With a thunderous boom, one of the devil statues was destroyed. With 2 steps, the earth trembled as rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly. That chaotic devil statue frenziedly tore apart everything in its path. With 3 steps, a storm of destruction engulfed this entire space. However, the devil sounds continued to reverberate in the air, and the countless devil statues continued to press down on Qin Wentian, seemingly never-ending. There's no form of existence, everything is a devil will. With a devil barrier in my heart, the devil statues are endless. As long as my state of mind is clear, the devils will not be able to suppress me. When Qin Wentian stepped out for the 7th step, a surge of sword intent towered up the heavens. He clasped his hands behind his back and stared at the devil statue before him as he advanced step by step. No matter how powerful the devil statues tried to press down on him, they couldn't do anything to him. Countless devil statues frenziedly rushed over, but before Qin Wentian, there seemed to be a supreme light that shone brightly. That was the will of clarity. His state of mind was clear and bright, the devil barrier wouldn't be able to affect his heart. Qin Wentian continued forward, allowing the devil statues to press down on him. He didn't stop, he entered from the entrance of the gigantic devil statue and continued moving deeper into the depths of this devil cave. No matter how dangerous the devil statue cliff was, or how mysterious it was, if Bai Qing was trapped here, he would bring her out. But if Bai Qing died here, no matter whose territory the devil statue cliff belonged to, he would spare no expense to destroy it. After stepping into another dimension, Qin Wentian didn't feel any relief at all. In fact, he felt even more danger. In this vast space, devil statues could be seen everywhere, suppressing everything. Darkness devil chi danced wildly in the air as the devil statues opened their eyes and stared at Qin Wentian. Their terrifying auras frenziedly bore down on Qin Wentian. Rumble. At this moment, a devil statue moved, directly stepping out from the towering cliff. Its gigantic body lunged towards Qin Wentian as it punched out, manifesting a gigantic devil head that smashed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's palms shone with a resplendent light. He lifted his palms and punched out, shattering the devil statue. His other arm grabbed out, slamming into the devil statue, causing it to explode. Boom! The earth trembled as the devil statues on both sides of the cliff trembled. After which, they uprooted themselves from the ground as boundless devil might gushed forth. These devil statues all lunged towards Qin Wentian, there was no end to them. If you all want to be a devil, I shall transform into a devil today. Qin Wentian's body grew violent as his demonic qi towered up into the clouds. With a stomp of his foot, he soared up into the air as a myriad of silhouettes appeared at the same time. Boundless divine light flashed, illuminating the entire space. Countless palm imprints blasted out, causing the void to tremble, destroying everything. Qin Wentian took large strides forward, rushing forward. He wanted to see how mysterious and terrifying this devil statue cliff was exactly. Chapter 673. Qin Wentian roamed around the devil statue cliff. The devil statues awakened and frenziedly rushed over. Qin Wentian swept them all away, frenziedly entering the depths of the devil statue cliff. He arrived in a sealed valley, which was also guarded by the golems. There was no sky in the sky, nor was there any sky. The only thing standing there was a single golem, piercing into the sky, as if it were suppressing the heavens. Boom! Qin Wentian's heart pounded. The devilish qi around him grew even more terrifying, causing him to feel like collapsing. Abruptly, boundless sound waves gushed forth from the devil statue cliff, permeating into Qin Wentian's ears. In front of him, a figure walked out, its entire body shone with a blood-colored devilish light. This was a terrifying devil figure, its eyes stared at Qin Wentian, as though it wanted to trap Qin Wentian within. At the instant this figure walked out, a gap appeared in the sealed space. Only through this gap could one continue forward. The sound waves continued, boundless devilish light shone from the devil statue. After which, the devil statue stepped out, lunging towards Qin Wentian with a speed so fast that it resembled a beam of devilish light. A simple and unadorned punch blasted out, capable of shaking the ancient and modern world, penetrating through the void. This punch contained boundless devilish qi, suppressing the heavens and earth, its strength capable of breaking through everything. Astral light circulated frenziedly around Qin Wentian. With a howl of rage, his body expanded in size as his robes tore apart. He stomped on the ground, manifesting a myriad of phantoms, his palms capable of shattering the constellations, sun, moon, and moon. Terrifying explosions rocked the heavens and earth. That devil statue's fist continued blasting forth, there was no way it wouldn't break. Qin Wentian's entire body shimmered with resplendent light as he collided head-on with his opponent's fist. In that instant, he felt that his opponent's fist contained a towering amount of devilish might, wanting to destroy his internal organs. It was as though a boundless devilish might was seeping into his body. Boom! A thunderous boom rang out, the devil statue's footsteps slid across the ground, causing sizzling sounds to echo out. Qin Wendian was forced backwards from the impact, coughing out blood. Wiping away the traces of blood at the corner of his lips, he placed his palms on the sword hilt behind his back. A resplendent light flashed as the sword was unsheathed. Qin Wendian's fingers slid across the blade of the demon's sword as fresh blood dyed the demon's sword red. Buzz! A terrifying sword tempest engulfed everything. The sword was unsheathed, transforming into a 1,000-meter-long demon sword. The keening of the sword tore apart the void, frenziedly sweeping towards the devil statues on the devil statue cliff. Qin Wendian brandished the gigantic sword as he advanced forward. Boundless sword intent cascaded down from the skies, blasting into the devil statue before him. The body of the devil statue expanded explosively, yet Qin Wendian roared in rage as he slashed out with the gigantic sword. Instantly, a boundless might bore down on the devil statue, slashing it down. The devil statue lifted its gigantic palm to defend, but the demon's sword swept out horizontally, directly slashing the devil statue apart, turning it into dust. Qin Wendian continued moving forward, staring at the hole that was opened up. The devil might within caused his heart to tremble, causing his heart to palpitate uncontrollably. The statue on the devil statue cliff seemed to be a real person, with a real face. It was as though it had experienced the passage of millions of years, becoming a statue on the devil statue cliff. The demon's sword shrank back to its original size. Qin Wendian wielded the demon's sword and walked through the hole, arriving at another dimension. At this instant, his gaze froze as his heart pounded violently. Boundless devil music rang out, shaking the souls of others. A towering black-colored devilish light mixed together with blood-colored light. In the center of this incomparably vast devil statue cliff, there were millions of devil statues in the surroundings. All of them radiated an intense devilish light as they moved towards the sacrificial altar in the center. 10,000 Devils' Pilgrimage. Qin Wendian's heart pounded violently. The 10,000 Devils' Pilgrimage was like they were worshipping the Devil King. In the central region, a blood-colored light shot up to the skies, as though there was a devil light cascading down from the heavens, cascading down on the sacrificial altar in the center. The sacrificial altar was enveloped by the blood-colored light, and within it, there seemed to be a devil statue. It couldn't be seen clearly, but in the surroundings of the sacrificial altar, numerous blood-colored devils could be seen. They stood there chanting, as though they were singing a song of victory for the Devil King. At this moment, a figure turned around. This figure was an illusory devil phantom. He merely cast a glance at Qin Wendian, and just a single glance was enough to cause Qin Wendian to lose control of his body. That terrifying devilish might directly gushed into his sea of consciousness. Bzz. That devil phantom instantly appeared before him. Qin Wendian felt as though he had fallen into a devil's trap. This was a blood-colored space with no signs of life, only a devil intent. A terrifying blood-colored palm imprint blasted over, slamming into Qin Wendian, causing him to cough out blood from the impact. Could this be a constellation as well? Qin Wendian mumbled. He felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. There was actually such a terrifying power within the devil statue cliff. There were even devils worshipping the devil statues here. Qin Wendian, who was lying on the ground, stared at the devil light in the air. Faint traces of starlight could be seen flickering within, resembling a constellation. From within, a blood-colored devil saber manifested, directly slashing down. That devil saber seemed to be able to sever the heavens and earth. Qin Wendian felt despair. He had no way to evade the attack of this devil saber. Puchi. The devil saber pierced into his body as fresh blood dyed the ground red. Qin Wendian's countenance turned pale. He had thought that he could do many things, like finding Bai Qing and taking revenge for her. But now, he discovered to his dismay that he wasn't as strong as he had imagined. In this world, there were too many powers he couldn't defend against. A flame burned in Qin Wendian's heart, a flame that wanted to grow stronger. However, this wish could only be placed on Dtian. Fresh blood dyed the ground even redder. Qin Wentian's consciousness was somewhat blurry. The blood that flowed on the ground didn't dry even after a long time, but instead, a powerful aura permeated the air, slowly flowing back into Qin Wentian's body, nourishing his heart, as though it was sustaining Qin Wentian's life force. Why am I not dead yet? In his blurry consciousness, Qin Wentian felt as though he hadn't died yet. That white-colored heart fire appeared again, as though it was able to protect his life. Even if his heart was attacked, it would still be able to protect his heart, preventing him from dying. But this time around, the injuries he suffered were different. That devil's saber was still embedded in his body, and there was a terrifying energy within that saber corroding his heart, wanting to reap away his life. These two energies seemed to be fighting against each other. This type of resistance lasted for a very long time, but the people on the sacrificial altar seemed to have forgotten about him. The devilish melody still lingered in the air, as though an ancient ritual was being carried out. After several days, Qin Wentian faintly sensed that the devilish melody had vanished. He could sense that he wasn't dead yet. In fact, he could even sense that someone had pulled out the devil's saber that was stabbed into his heart. He tried his best to regain his blurry consciousness so that he could see everything clearly. However, he could only faintly sense a blurry figure. That figure was clad in black devil armor, exuding a terrifying aura. Her face seemed somewhat familiar, clear and beautiful, yet it exuded a terrifying devilish intent, as though she was the descendant of a devil king. After that, Qin Wentian felt a soft and supple body hugging him. That black devil armor didn't seem to have any weight at all, it was unable to block the feeling of soft skin, yet it still gave off an intense sense of majesty. After that, Qin Wentian faintly felt that he was floating in the air. All of this seemed like a dream, and it was slightly unreal. When he woke up from his dream, Qin Wentian tried his best to open his eyes. The sunlight pierced into his eyes, and Qin Wentian narrowed his eyes, feeling somewhat unaccustomed to it. After that, he opened his eyes again, adapting to the sunlight. White clouds drifted about in the sky, the devilish melody had long stopped lingering in his ears. Beside him, whispers could be heard, as well as laughter. Could it be that this fellow fainted even before he stepped into the Devil Statue Cliff? Devil Statue Cliff. Qin Wentian abruptly sat up, his heart pounding violently. He glanced at his own body, only to see that his robes were in a mess, and there were traces of lacerations everywhere. The wound at the location of his heart seemed to have already healed. That terrifying bloodline of his had an extremely powerful healing ability. This was something Qin Wentian knew very well. Shifting his gaze to the side, the demon's sword quietly laid on the ground beside him, resembling an ordinary iron sword, with no abnormalities at all. What happened? Qin Wentian mumbled to himself. Everything seemed like a dream, but he knew that he wasn't dreaming. Everything was real. Who was that blurry figure in his dream? Was she the one who saved him? Stretching his hands out, Qin Wentian touched his cheeks. There seemed to be some crystallized liquid that had dried on his face, leaving behind some traces. Qin Wentian picked up the demon's sword and stood up, staring at the horizons. The Devil Statue Cliff was right there. He was sent out by someone. A gust of wind gusted by, fluttering his robes. Qin Wentian stared at the white clouds above the Devil Statue Cliff. Everything seemed so tranquil, yet his heart was unable to calm down even after a long time. He was thinking, which part of the sky was the real one? That space within the Devil Statue Cliff, that towering devilish light that pierced through the sky, where did it come from? Little Bai Qing, is that you? Qin Wentian mumbled in a low voice. That soft frame clad in black devil armor, that resolute yet gentle gaze, although blurry, he was still very familiar. Could that be Bai Qing? Qin Wentian had no way to know the truth. He also knew that he didn't have the strength to enter the Devil Statue Cliff again. The devil silhouettes there, he had no way to contend against them. Do you know what happened? Qin Wentian placed the demon's sword in front of him as he asked. The demon's sword didn't reply, it still didn't emit any light. It was completely silent, as though it was fulfilling its promise. It would only be a witness for Qin Wentian. Senior brother, is this man an idiot? He's actually talking to his own sword. Not far away from him, a young lady spoke to the young man beside her, as she stared at Qin Wentian with a strange expression. Maybe he's scared silly. The young man mocked. The group of young men and women stared at Qin Wentian's disheveled robes and dumbfounded expression. All of them thought that Qin Wentian was an idiot. Qin Wentian acted as though he hadn't heard anything. Abruptly, a terrifying beam of light shot up into the skies, instantly enveloping his entire body. After which, he took out a set of clean robes and donned them. He continued staring at the devil statue cliff as he sighed in his heart, hoping that this last by Qin would be fine. The void sail appeared as Qin Wentian stepped onto it. A resplendent light flashed as Qin Wentian's silhouette directly vanished into thin air. The people behind him stared at the departing silhouette, as well as that terrifying light earlier. They gulped as their faces turned pale. Their entire bodies were drenched in cold sweat. In that instant earlier, they felt that as long as Qin Wentian was angered, he could easily crush them to death. Chapter 674. In the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, many ruins rose up from the ground. The skilled craftsmen all obeyed Yun Mengyi's instructions, and after a period of sleepless nights, the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia once again regained its former majesty. But what was different from the ancient kingdom of the past was that the current ancient kingdom of Grand Xia was filled with vitality, as though it was witnessing the rise of a new dynasty. A new legend was currently playing out in Grand Xia. The transcendent powers of Grand Xia didn't come to cause trouble. When Qin Wentian moved to the ancient kingdom in response to their request, the transcendent powers were strangely silent. Behind this silence, one could faintly sense that there would be a day when these transcendent powers would rise up. At that time, no one could predict whether the future of Grand Xia would be the same as the Azure Emperor back then. During these days, outside the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, a grey-robed silhouette would occasionally appear. This old man resembled an ordinary old man, passing by the majestic ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. Only after several days did this old man vanish from sight. With regards to this point, Qin Wentian had no idea. Qin Wentian left a pair of eyes in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. He also left an astral war beast there. He would know everything that happened in the ancient kingdom. It was the same in Chu. During these days, Chu wasn't at peace. The reason was naturally because of the return of Qin Wentian as well as the date of his wedding. More and more people flocked to the royal capital of Chu, preparing to attend the grand wedding between Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng. The emperor of Chu, Chu Wuwei, had long ordered for a banquet to be held. Who wouldn't want to see the young man who killed the imperial emperor with a single strike? During this period of time, Mo Feng and Mo Yu were both extremely awe-inspiring. Every day, there would be many good friends coming to look for them, inquiring about Qin Wentian. The incident at the inn that day had spread like wildfire, and after Qin Wentian asked the imperial emperor to come see him, countless young men treated Qin Wentian as their idol. That last Mo Yu didn't reject him at all. Mo Feng was somewhat unhappy, he preferred to bring Ling Yu around to roam the world. Today, Mo Feng and Ling Yu were holding hands as they strolled through the royal capital. The two of them had already confirmed their relationship and would stick together every day, causing Mo Feng to be extremely happy. Mo Feng, in the future when you marry me, would you make me look as imposing as Sis Qingcheng? Ling Yu smiled, joking with Mo Feng. Mo Feng scratched his head as he spoke in a somewhat dejected manner. Ling Yu, although I will do my best to give you a satisfactory wedding, but if I want to surpass brother-in-law and let you be as awe-inspiring as Sis Qingcheng, I'm afraid it's going to be extremely difficult. After all, brother-in-law is simply too awesome. Hee hee. Ling Yu pulled Mo Feng's hand as she smiled gently. I'm just joking with you. As long as you treat me well, it's enough. For brother-in-law to have such accomplishments today, he must have experienced many trials and dangers. Although I also hope that you are strong, I don't want you to encounter so many dangers. If you can spend more time with me, I'll already be the happiest. Mo Feng, am I very selfish? On one hand, I hope that you will be strong enough to marry me in a glorious manner, but on the other hand, I'm talking about this. Nope, this is because you like me. Mo Feng smiled in a silly manner. Looking at Ling Yu's face, he felt a little shy as he rolled his eyes. Who likes you? After speaking, she turned and sprinted away. Mo Feng hurriedly chased after her. Mississippi, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared, blocking Ling Yu's path. Ling Yu stared at the silhouettes that appeared before her as her mouth opened and closed. Has father come to Chu? Ling Yu asked. Old master wants to see you. The person in front nodded. Ling Yu nodded and turned her head to look at Mo Feng as a bitter smile appeared on her face. Mo Feng, you should return. Ling Yu. Mo Feng spoke with reluctance. Don't worry, I'll go chat with my father. Ling Yu smiled. Old master said to let young master Mo Feng go as well. The figure in front spoke, his words causing Ling Yu and Mo Feng to start. They exchanged mutual glances. Ling Yu's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of nervousness. However, Mo Feng replied, that's fine then. Ling Yu, I will go with you to meet uncle together. Ling Yu hesitated for a moment before nodding her head lightly, okay. Let's go little miss, old master is in the Drunken Wine Inn. The figure in front led the way, causing Ling Yu and Mo Feng to feel a little puzzled. To think that they were actually in the Drunken Wine Inn, the place where the commotion occurred previously. Right now, the Drunken Wine Inn was even more bustling compared to before. There were many guests, but today, the third level was exceptionally quiet. There was no sound at all. When Mo Feng and Ling Yu walked up together, they felt somewhat nervous. And when they stepped into a private room, Ling Yu's beautiful eyes instantly froze. She naturally saw her father. However, her father wasn't the only one here. Her grandpa was here as well. In fact, both her grandpa and her father were standing there, accompanied by a black-robed silhouette. This black-robed figure sat there, exuding a sense of imposingness. His eyes were sharp, as though they could pierce through the hearts of others. Ling Yu seemed to be a little nervous. She bowed to the black-robed figure and called out, Ling Yu pays her respects to the sovereign. As a member of the Green Cloud Pavilion, Ling Yu naturally knew who this black-robed figure was. It was none other than the Green Cloud Sovereign who forced Old Man Green Cloud away. The Green Cloud Sovereign wasn't as gentle as Qin Wentian, he was an extremely strict person. Those who submit to him would prosper, his methods were extremely ruthless. Ling Yu was somewhat afraid of him, but she didn't have the chance to meet him normally. She didn't expect that he would actually come to Chu today. Mo Feng's body trembled lightly. Sovereign, was this the Green Cloud Sovereign from the Green Cloud Pavilion? The Green Cloud Sovereign nodded. The usually strict Green Cloud Sovereign had a rare smile on his face, but his smile was still filled with a sense of imposingness. The gaze of the Green Cloud Sovereign landed on Mo Feng as he asked, You are Mo Qingqing's younger brother, Mo Feng? Yes. Mo Feng nodded in response, feeling a little nervous as well. Not bad, you are quite compatible with Ling Yu. The Green Cloud Sovereign laughed, his words causing Mo Feng to heave a sigh of relief. Many thanks, Sovereign. Don't worry about it. I came to Chu because I wish to meet with your brother-in-law. Can you help me pass a message to him? The Green Cloud Sovereign asked. Mo Feng started. Qin Wentian domineeringly killed the Imperial Emperor of the Green Cloud Imperial Empire and told the others to report this to the Green Cloud Sovereign. After that, no one from the Green Cloud Pavilion came to seek revenge and this matter was left unsettled. But now, the Green Cloud Sovereign actually appeared here. But from the looks of it, he wasn't here for revenge. My brother-in-law isn't in Chu, I have no way to contact him. Mo Feng spoke. Fine, go back and tell your sister first. If your brother-in-law still hasn't returned after 3 days, I will pay a visit to your sister. The Green Cloud Sovereign still had a smile on his face, causing Mo Feng to have no idea what he meant. Okay, I will tell my sister. Mo Feng nodded. Go on, Ling Yu will stay behind to accompany her father. The Green Cloud Sovereign casually spoke. Mo Feng glanced at Ling Yu and upon seeing her nod, he left the inn. After Mo Feng returned, he told Mo Qingqing about this matter before he departed. In the courtyard Mo Qingqing was in, her beautiful eyes flashed with bewilderment as she stared at the silver rock beside her. This silver rock was none other than Qin Wentian's summoned beast. Before the astral energy of a summoned beast was depleted, it would be able to exist forever. Through this summoned beast, Qin Wentian was able to know everything that was happening here. Hence, he also knew what the Green Cloud Sovereign wanted Mo Feng to tell him. This caused Qin Wentian to feel bewilderment in his heart. Maybe, the Green Cloud Sovereign knew that Mo Qingqing would have a way to contact him, hence he wanted Mo Feng to pass the message to Mo Qingqing. However, he didn't know what his purpose for coming here was. Given the status of the Green Cloud Sovereign, he would naturally know of the happenings in Grand Xia. It was just that Qin Wentian didn't know if the Green Cloud Sovereign had come into contact with the Shi ancestor or the Wang ancestor. No matter what, since the Green Cloud Sovereign appeared in Chu, Qin Wentian would definitely have to return to meet him. Other than him, no one else in Chu would be able to suppress the Green Cloud Sovereign. 2 days later, Qin Wentian returned to Chu. The Mo residence naturally became lively again. That last Mo started to pester Qin Wentian, and it wasn't easy for him to settle this lass. In the courtyard, only Qin Wentian, Mo Qingqing and Little Rascal remained. The Green Cloud Sovereign has been waiting for you, I wonder what his intentions are. Mo Qingqing spoke. No matter what his intentions are, we will know when we get there. Qin Wentian smiled. Be careful. Mo Qingqing had a feeling that the Green Cloud Sovereign was up to no good. Don't worry, no matter how strong the Green Cloud Sovereign is, it's impossible for him to trap me here. Qin Wentian still had this bit of confidence. In addition, the Green Cloud Sovereign couldn't be that strong. At the very most, there would be other transcendent characters of Grand Xia present. But at the very least, he would be able to retreat unscathed. As long as he didn't die, those transcendent characters of Grand Xia wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. When he was very far away from the Drunken Wine Inn, Qin Wentian's tyrannical perception enveloped the entire place. In fact, the entire area was within Qin Wentian's perception. The Drunken Wine Inn was very lively, there were many people coming and going, but the third level of the inn was extremely quiet. Qin Wentian could sense the existence of a black-robed man. This black-robed man was the strongest here, at the Celestial Phenomenon Realm. Other than the black-robed man, he could easily see through the cultivation bases of the others. Could it be that the Green Cloud Sovereign isn't here for revenge? Qin Wentian silently mused. At this moment, the eyes of the Green Cloud Sovereign abruptly opened, gleaming with sharpness. From the third level of the inn, his gaze directly penetrated through space, staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian knew that the Green Cloud Sovereign already knew of his existence. Stepping out, his silhouette landed on the third level of the Drunken Wine Inn. He saw the Green Cloud Sovereign and the others, as well as Ling Yu and the others behind him. Brother-in-law. Ling Yu called out. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. After which, he turned to the Green Cloud Sovereign and asked, "Why do you want to see me?" "Actually, it's not that I want to see you." The Green Cloud Sovereign laughed. As he spoke, an old man who was sweeping the floor outside the inn suddenly put down his broom and inclined his head. His robes were extremely ordinary and he exuded no aura at all, completely resembling an ordinary old man who had already stepped into his 70s. But at this instant, the look in his eyes was actually so terrifying. Instantly, astral light flashed in the sky as a terrifying constellation appeared, enveloping the entire inn. The passers-by all inclined their heads, and when they saw this sudden scene, their hearts pounded violently. When they stared at this constellation, it was like they saw an ancient astral tree with incomparably gigantic vines that enveloped this entire space. Those vines were like countless tentacles that directly swept towards the inn, instantly enveloping it within. Chapter 675. Qin Wendian naturally discovered this situation. The instant the constellation outside erupted, he could already feel the tyrannical aura. His eyes stared at the green cloud sovereign as a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. Evidently, the green cloud sovereign had colluded with an extremely powerful expert. This expert had the ability to conceal his aura and aura. Qin Wendian's perception was already extremely powerful, but he actually failed to notice that this ordinary-looking old man was actually so terrifying to think that he would be able to sense such a terrifying aura. Qin Wendian stared at the cold smile on the lips of the green cloud sovereign. His eyes were filled with mockery, looking at Qin Wendian like he was looking at a clown. Killing someone from his green cloud pavilion? Not putting him, the green cloud sovereign, in his eyes? Very good. I shall take his life then. Even if his name shook Grand Xia and he had the strength to slay celestial phenomenon ascendants, this time around, he would still die for sure. Brother-in-law. Ling Yu exclaimed in shock. Her countenance instantly paled. There was actually a powerful ambush waiting for Qin Wendian here. She didn't know any of this, but the appearance of Qin Wendian had something to do with her and her family. This caused Ling Yu to feel extremely uncomfortable in her heart as a sense of guilt welled up in her heart. It was like she was the one who betrayed Qin Wendian. In truth, Ling Yu was thinking too much. Since the Green Cloud Sovereign appeared in Chu, Qin Wendian had to meet with him no matter what. The Green Cloud Sovereign was very clear of this point because in Chu, only Qin Wendian could suppress the Green Cloud Sovereign. If the Green Cloud Sovereign chose to kill his family, how could he not appear? The Green Cloud Sovereign chose such a peaceful method. Firstly, he didn't want to attract his attention. Secondly, before Qin Wendian walked right into the trap, he wouldn't dare to act recklessly. It has nothing to do with you. Qin Wendian spoke. At this moment, the entire inn trembled violently. The ancient vines wrapped around the inn tightly as numerous sharp tentacles pierced into the interior of the inn, causing fresh blood to spurt out. Arg! Save me! Below the inn, screams of misery rang out unceasingly. Those tentacles mercilessly reaped the lives of the people in the inn. After which, they shot towards Qin Wendian, resembling a bloody maw, wanting to devour Qin Wendian whole. This was a gigantic net, sealing off all paths of escape. Qin Wendian's countenance instantly turned ashen. He could clearly sense that the innocent people in the inn were all killed just like that. The sharp vines pierced through their bodies, and many corpses were still dangling from the vines. It was a ghastly sight to behold. That old man was actually so deranged, killing people like flies. In his eyes, life was so lowly and lowly. Bzz. The scarlet demon halberd appeared in his hands. Qin Wendian brandished it and ferociously slashed out. Resplendent illusory demonic energy was infused into his attack, slicing towards the incoming vines. With a thunderous boom, the vines were directly shattered. The experts from the Green Cloud Sovereign and the Green Cloud Pavilion had already vanished. Other than the corpses, only Qin Wendian remained in the inn. He was trapped within his constellation. Qin Wendian inclined his head and stared at the air. The inn had already been destroyed by the attacks of the vines. Above his head, a constellation could be seen. This constellation was in the form of a gigantic vine that blotted out the sun. Countless vine tentacles extended downwards, enveloping this entire space. Who are you? Qin Wendian coldly spoke. Among the hegemons of Grand Xia, there shouldn't be such a person. In the air, astral light flowed. Below the vine constellation, another constellation actually appeared. Dual constellation. The cold light in Qin Wendian's eyes grew even more resplendent. He stared at the constellation, only to see the silhouette of the old man shuttling through the constellation, vanishing into thin air. Within the constellation, there were many ghostly silhouettes. The two constellations gradually fused together, fusing into one. Qin Wendian felt an intense sense of danger. The opponent in front of him was far more terrifying compared to Ouyang Mutian and the celestial phenomenon ascendants from the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wendian extended his perception to the extreme, yet he still had no way to sense the existence of the old man. The second constellation that the old man comprehended clearly had the ability to conceal his true body. Borrowing the power of the constellation, Qin Wendian had no way to sense the location of the old man's true body. Those vine tentacles which had been squirming all this while finally moved, launching their attacks at the same instant. The speed of their attacks was so fast that terrifying rumbling sounds echoed in the air. Not only that, all of them blasted out explosively, causing Qin Wendian to have no idea which direction he should attack. Boom! Qin Wendian stepped in the air as demonic qi towered up into the skies. His body expanded in size, as though he had transformed into a fiend god. Resplendent demonic energy circulated around him, as though he was clad in a fearsome armor. Illusion! Qin Wendian roared. Numerous phantoms appeared at the same time, all of them brandishing their halberds, and in that instant, it was as though there were countless Qin Wendian launching their attacks. The vines that shot over were all shattered into pieces. However, the vines were connected to the constellation in the air, and there seemed to be no end to them. Qin Wendian's attack could only last for an instant. Qin Wendian's Yuanfu thrummed madly as his divine energy erupted forth. Instantly, towering sword qi gushed forth in all directions, clashing against the terrifying sharpness of the vines. But even so, it seemed as though he still couldn't block the attack. After all, his opponent was an attack from a constellation, and this wasn't the same as Ouyang Mutian's constellation. If this attack landed on his body, he would definitely be destroyed. I have to rush out. Qin Wendian stared at the sky as he exuded a towering sword might. His body shuddered as the demon's sword was unsheathed. His left palm sliced through the demon's sword as fresh blood dyed the sword red. A demonic blood-colored light shone brilliantly as sword hums filled the skies, wanting to destroy everything. Die! Qin Wendian roared. Wielding the scarlet demon halberd in his right hand and the demon's sword in his left, a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from him. His entire person seemed to be enveloped by sword qi, and this was the only reason why he could unceasingly rush upwards. In the air, the vines were boundless, attacking madly. It was the same in other directions as well. Qin Wendian struggled to rush upwards. If it wasn't for the sword might tearing everything apart, he wouldn't even be able to advance an inch. Too powerful. This celestial phenomenon ascendant who came to assassinate him could most probably insta-kill a Pill King. Bzzz. Abruptly, Qin Wendian saw a pair of eyes appearing in the air. These eyes were so soul-stirring that it caused his entire body to turn cold. The demon's sword slashed out in anger as a terrifying sword light slashed through the countless vines in the air. However, that pair of eyes abruptly vanished. From the right, terrifying ancient vines coiled towards Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian's right hand violently smashed out with the scarlet demon halberd, destroying the ancient vines. But after that, he saw that pair of ice-cold eyes again, eyes so cold that it could even cause one's soul to shiver. Bzzz. A gray-colored silhouette wielding a long black spear dashed out. He was sent here by the vines, and his speed was inconceivably fast. Not only that, the instant when Qin Wendian's scarlet demon halberd was about to dissipate the force of the attack, his timing was impeccable. At this moment, Qin Wendian felt as though his mental state had turned sluggish, even the flow of his blood had slowed down. That ice-cold feeling engulfed his entire body, causing his movements to slow down. The terrifying long spear pierced into the scarlet demon halberd, Qin Wendian's hands trembled. That ice-cold feeling, as well as the fearsome tremor, actually caused the scarlet demon halberd to slip out of his hands. After which, the long spear pierced towards his head. Qin Wendian instantly felt as though his brain couldn't function properly. The darkness energy contained within that long spear was extremely terrifying. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, so fast that Qin Wendian didn't even have time to think. Such a powerful assassin was simply too terrifying. At this moment, the only thing left for Qin Wendian was despair. However, at this moment, a terrifying blood-colored radiance erupted from Qin Wendian's body. That was the roar of his bloodline as a terrifying demonic shadow appeared. This demonic shadow was like a terrifying humanoid demonic beast, forcibly peeling itself out from Qin Wendian's body. The demonic shadow lifted its palms and blasted out towards his opponent. Puchi. The long spear that was circulating with a terrifying black-colored energy pierced into the demonic shadow's palm and even into its body. However, the demonic shadow's palm similarly slammed onto the opponent's body. That blood-colored palm imprint was none other than the star-plucking palm imprint, capable of shaking the sun, moon, and stars. The gray-robed old man was actually sent flying as he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Evidently, he didn't expect that Qin Wendian would have such a sudden attack. What is that? The old man stared at the demonic shadow that appeared. This demonic shadow seemed to be based on Qin Wendian, but it was even more berserk. There were no emotions in its cold eyes, and it wouldn't die. That terrifying attack earlier had pierced into his body, yet it didn't manage to kill him. The demonic shadow and Qin Wendian fused together. The demon's sword slashed out horizontally, severing the countless vines that were attacking him. His eyes were incomparably cold as he stared fixedly at the gray-robed old man in front of him. Bloodline protection. The eyes of the gray-robed old man flashed with a strange light as he felt shock in his heart. The bloodline of this young man was actually so terrifying, to think that it could even manifest a bloodline protection. Bloodline protection? Qin Wendian felt a little puzzled. This was the first time he heard of bloodline protection. That demonic shadow earlier was indeed born from the power of his bloodline. Back then when he comprehended the true intent of demons, his bloodline had gone berserk, resulting in the birth of this ability. This was the second ability derived from the power of his bloodline. The first ability allowed him to grow stronger, allowing him to directly break through to the next realm. The gray-robed old man, on the other hand, was extremely shocked. Bloodline protection was a type of bloodline innate technique, and those who possessed such an innate technique were all people with extremely powerful bloodlines. In that case, Qin Wendian's ancestors definitely had extremely powerful bloodlines. Such a character, in the entire royal sacred region, it would be extremely difficult to find a second one. At the very least, up until now, he had only seen Qin Wendian. If it wasn't for the fact that he had lived for so many years, and had read countless ancient texts, he wouldn't even know what the scene earlier was. Who is this young man? I have to kill him no matter what. The heart of the gray-robed old man was as cold as ice. The killing intent in his pitch-black eyes grew even more intense. The ascendants of Grand Xia hired you to kill me, right? Qin Wendian's voice was ice-cold. The opponent in front of him was extremely dangerous. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.